Everyone to the September 15th regular board meeting of the Northwestern Lehigh School District. Begin, would you please join me in opening exercises? We do the pledge to the flag followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, America, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. And Stacy, would you please call the roll?
Sure. John Cassiano.
Here.
Willard Deliker.
Here.
Joseph Fassinger.
Present.
Todd Hernandez.
Here.
Todd Weiser.
Here.
Rosemary Lister. Here. Alan Rex.
Here.
Rachel Scheffler. Here. James Werfel.
Here.
Thank you, everybody present this evening. Again, welcome to all of you. At this time, we will ask for approval of the agenda that we have in front of us, but I'd like to make actually 3 changes. We have some very good news this evening about the financial situation with our borrowing, and I'd like to, and also donation from our foundation. So I would like to move item 6.01, the Educational Foundation donation, and item 6.03, the General Obligation Note, Series 2021, to the recognition and presentations at 1.08, if it's the will of the board.
Don't move.
I got one more.
Oh, you got another one yet.
And also, I would like to take the president's report and move it to make it part of the courtesy of the floor this evening. To try to set the stage for what I believe are going to be some questions about the order that we have on masking. And with those 3 items changing the agenda, I would ask for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fassinger.
Second.
Second by Mr. Weiser. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And we have an agenda. And at this point in our agenda, and at the end of the meeting, we offer courtesy of the floor to anyone who would like to address the school board. And courtesy of the floor is a requirement by the state for school board meetings to give the public an opportunity to comment about items that are on the agenda that are up for action, up for a vote. And that is the reason why school boards offer courtesy of the floor to people who are present. The idea of courtesy of the floor is to give you a chance to comment on agenda items that will be acted on. And they are not a question and answer period. This is not a public meeting. This is a meeting in public. It's not your town hall kind of a setting. However, this board has always taken questions and attempted to clarify issues as they are brought to the board during this time. The reason I'd like to read some notes that I have to get started on this agenda or this courtesy of the floor is to try to clarify some of the issues that I have seen in emails and have been told about floating around social media, so that maybe we can answer some questions and address some of your fears before we get started with the courtesy of the floor. So with that, I will run through my notes here. And first of all, I'd like to thank everyone here who is with us this evening. And thank you for coming in this stormy night. And thank you for all the many emails that we got from you on the issues that are concerning our school this this startup of this school year, which is mainly in the transportation area, and in this new order that we got from the Department of Health regarding mandatory masking. Throughout all the noise that we have to deal with which I consider to be government overreach and some political ideology concerning this mask issue, I want you to know tonight that the highest priority for this school district, for this board, and for our administrators and staff is the education of your children in a healthy and a safe environment on our buildings, in our athletic fields, and in our buses. I think I'm as frustrated and angry as that school boards and school administrators' decisions about the well-being of the children in our community are being taken from the local school districts by politicians and bureaucrats with a broad brush mandate that may not reflect the local conditions that we have, that we know we have. And as a parent and a grandparent, going through my second generation of kids in this district, I know your frustration and anger as you passionately plead for the right to personally decide what is best for your child. We began this year with a health and safety plan that was approved by the board last June. It was developed based on the knowledge and experience that we gained through the previous year dealing with the COVID medical and operational issues. And like all board policy, it was developed in an objective and pragmatic sequence defining proactive response to a potential crisis before the crisis occurs and before the fog of war confuses logical thinking. Our plan has two tracks. First, it's the analysis of data with tiered mitigation measures to stop the spread of the case of COVID cases. And the second track is compliance with required action directed by higher government authority if that ever occurred, which it did. Based on the COVID data, we began this year on the first track with voluntary masking that gave parents the choice for protection of their children. Then on September 7th, we were required to shift to the second track when the order from the acting Secretary of Health mandated masks in schools. After the masking order was directed and pushback began, there were several communications from the Department of Health and from the Department of Education that added more clarity to this order. First, parents could not opt out, and waivers for no masks had to follow a process that exhausted all other measures before being approved to not wear a mask. Waiver forms were developed by legal firms to address the requirements of the order and used by school districts across the state to answer the questions required for a waiver. Then PDE instructed schools to follow the existing 504/IDEA. Help me with IDEA, please.
Individuals with disabilities. Individuals with
Disabilities, educational. Let's see. Act. This is a procedure that's been in our district, in our state for years, that dictates how any medical waiver is afforded to a child in school. So the PDE instructed us to follow that existing plan for all students, which requires an MD or a DO to sign the waiver forms. Northwestern Lehigh is attempting to facilitate the waiver process and did not add burdensome layers of forms and doctor qualifications to intimidate parents trying to apply for a mask waiver. These are all requirements that were given to us by higher authority. And finally, my hope is that we can successfully work through this new COVID year as a community, as we did last year, and keep our children in school for 5 days a week. And that's the ultimate goal. No one on this board or in our administration is attempting to take control of the fundamental rights that we believe parents have for the welfare of their children. We are, however, bound by oath to follow the lawful orders of the Constitution of the Commonwealth and of the United States as your elected school board members, and we cannot choose which laws to follow or not follow. We don't have the financial resources in this district to legally challenge this order for masking. And while there are challenges in the making, it will be months before the legality of this order is resolved. So in the meantime, more letters from the Department of Ed, further clarifying the order. Advise board members in Pennsylvania to check our homeowners policy to make sure that we are covered for the personal fines and lawsuits that will be levied on us for non-compliance, with no indemnification or protection as elected officials. So willful non-compliance can result in personal financial ruin for school board members. I've never seen this kind of overreach, this kind of control and pressure from state government in the 30 years as a school director that I've had. But in the end, we are a nation of laws. That has brought us through 245 years as a nation. And if we follow the rule of law, I believe that we will see our way through this all together. So I thank you for your trust and your confidence. And with that, I would offer courtesy of floor for anyone who would like to address the board this evening. And in doing so, would you please rise and state your name and address for the record and the nature of your concern. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tara Banager. I live at 8692 Reservoir Road in Irwinsville, PA. My son is a sophomore. First, before I begin tonight, I want to take a moment to thank the members of the board. It has been a trying time, and I'm sure initially the challenge you faced were ones you didn't expect when you signed on for the job. Last year in May, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I spent the entire summer and fall and the pandemic in some pretty gnarly chemo, which wiped my immune system and left me vulnerable to infections. COVID surely would have killed me. As such, I was grateful for last year's decision by the board to offer fully asynchronous classes for our students, allowing my son to attend school with Northwestern Lehigh teachers from home and keeping money within the district. As someone who is a strong supporter of public school education, I didn't want to have to make the decision to send my son to a charter school. Being on a school board right now is tough. Across the nation, school boards have been bullied by those opposing mask wearing in school. But it's important to remember that those parents are in the minority. I'm here tonight because I think it is important that you hear the voices and stories of those of us in the majority that support this board and the boards across the country who have listened to the medical advice of experts and have required masks in school. Sometimes when all you hear are the complaints, it's easy to forget that there are many that stand in support of decisions you have made. This pandemic is not over, as much as we would like it to be. As a matter of fact, the variants that are out now have more adversely affected children than the original COVID strain we experienced last year. I am extremely grateful for the vaccine that I, my husband, and my older son, and my other family members have been able to take. However, there is one member of my family that remains vulnerable, and that is my 3-year-old who cannot yet get a vaccine. So in the beginning of the school year, when masks were going to remain optional, I was upset. We all know that vaccines work to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So if my older son were to get it and bring it home, he'd be fine, and maybe we'd be fine. But I worry about him bringing it home to my youngest, who does not have the benefit of the vaccine. And while I am vaccinated, I am still immune compromised and will be until my treatment for breast cancer is completed. The data has shown that mask wearing works most effectively when everyone within a shared space is wearing them, particularly when social distancing cannot be practiced. With children going back to school 5 days a week, which by the way, I believe is really important because unfortunately my son spent the entire year last year in his room, And sadly, it was because of my medical condition that I couldn't even allow him to come in a hybrid schedule. But social distancing is not possible when we have a full classroom of students. I get that masks are an annoyance, I really do. But if we are to have a close to normal school year, we need to continue practicing mitigation where and when we can. Some will stand up here and complain that masks deprive children of oxygen, etc. But those claims are ridiculous at best. If a surgeon can stand for hours on end, perform delicate life and death surgery wearing a mask without getting dizzy and without the risk of brain oxygen deprivation, I think our children will be fine. I know my 3-year-old wears his mask whenever I put it on him without argument. This includes in stores and when I bring him to the playground. I don't think that this is an issue for the children at all. I think this is more of an issue with adults who are passing on a poor attitude towards mask wearing to their children. To those parents opposed to masks in school, I'll say this. If you object to mask wearing and choose not to follow advice for avoiding getting COVID in your own personal life and interactions, I do not have a problem with that. But school is a shared community space in which the risks you and your family take outside of school can adversely affect those that must share the public space with you. The very least we can all do for each other is to wear a mask to protect not only ourselves, but those around us when social distancing is not possible. I thank you for your time and again for the job you are doing. I hope that the board continues to listen to the medical experts and advice from the PA Department of Health and the CDC and not succumb to the pressures put on it by those who would have you make decisions contrary to medical professional advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
My mask is right
Manager.
here, and I took it down so you can hear it.
That's the last outburst we will have tonight. If you cannot participate respectfully, and when it's your turn, you will be ejected from this meeting. We'll treat everyone in here with respect, and everyone who wants to be heard will be heard. Okay, thank you. Who else would like to address the board this evening?
My name is Aurelia Lundquist. I live at 6355 James Reserve Road in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I've sent emails to all of you, so I wanted to start by saying I cannot express my emotion via email. So I wanted to say that I do not view you as the enemy. You are in a tough spot, and I can only imagine how it feels that no matter what you do, someone's unhappy, and I'm sorry you're in that position. I'm also not here tonight to debate the effectiveness of masks or debate whether the masking order is legally binding. Although I do respectfully request that you get an additional outside legal opinion, as you should look into all options. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns and request that you do additional research and reevaluate the method in which you enforce the mask mandate and exception process. You've obviously heard from the community, and I must admit that the email that was sent earlier this week was very disappointing, to say the least. It did not come across as an email to bring the community together. Instead, it looked as though fear and funding concerns are driving your decisions more than what in the best interest of our students. It sounds like the community's concerns were not valued and simply would not be addressed, even though we feel it needs to be. I must ask, how is that even possible? As elected representatives, how can you dismiss the concerns of the community and parents and say you'll not address or discuss the topic? With all due respect, it's simply unacceptable, and we should hold our elected board members to a higher standard. My children are young and obviously not well versed in infection control. They come home every day with moist and dirty masks. Since you're now making medical decisions, how are you as a district ensuring my kids' respiratory health is protected? Moisture is an ideal breeding ground for viruses and bacteria. So who is responsible during the day to make sure that the mask is clean and dry? My son now comes home every day from school telling me he has a headache and he couldn't focus during parts of his day. I too suffer from headaches, and it's not easy to explain to my first grader that we as his parents no longer have a say in how his medical conditions are handled. The people that he's supposed to go to for help can no longer help him. You literally are enforcing something that's causing my son's medical issues and not giving us a reasonable way to opt out of it. On a side note, my younger son also came home the other day and told us that his mask dropped in the toilet while he went to flush, but was too nervous to tell his teacher, so he just put it back on. So not only is this not safe, there is literally no logic behind it. Now, I make it safe for you to consider all the children in the district. To some, this might just be a piece of cloth. To others, this is truly a struggle for various reasons. How is it possible that you'll not let the parents advocate for our kids? I understand that some of you feel that you have no choice but to implement the mandate, but we know our children better than anyone, certainly better than all of you. You have decided to pick and choose what part of the mandates you want to implement, and again, that seems unacceptable. I'm sure you know that not all students are equal. Now you must think of students, including those who you are physically and emotionally affecting. You are deterring their educational growth, hindering their schooling experience, teaching them that their needs and feelings are not valued, stealing away their learning of emotions and smiles, and taking away the rights as parents to advocate for our kids. Thinking about our community, the residents of Northwestern, we're strong. We are proud and we are fierce. And we are taught in school to stand up for what is right, even when it's not easy. That's what we're doing here tonight. We're standing up for our children because sadly, all of you are refusing to. You were elected to be leaders. Leaders don't take the easy way out. They don't cower behind recommendations. They don't dismiss other ideas and concerns without listening. And they certainly don't let the students suffer because they're afraid to take a stand. Shame on you for putting yourself in a leadership position and refusing to lead. Shame on you for putting yourself in a leadership, shame on you for allowing the kids that are suffering to feel that they're not heard or valued and they do not matter. Shame on you for allowing fear to guide your processes and procedures, and shame on you for not being the leaders that we want our children to look up to. So with that being said, I'm requesting that the exemption procedure be added to the COVID discussion tonight. We want to see who on the board is requiring a more stringent medical exemption process than the order mandate or requires, and who on the board is not standing up for the best interests of our community and our students. As election time comes, we have a right to know who does not value our students and the parents' concerns and our rights. Nowhere in the mandate does it require a doctor's signature. The recommendations that were received after the order are just that, recommendations. I, as a parent, should not have to consult a doctor or provide medical records to attest to my child's headaches. Many other school districts, including some of the largest districts in the state, are working with parents and communities. I encourage all of you to reach out to them. You can't tell us your hands are tied when other districts are doing better. And I never in my life thought I would feel like another district is doing better than ours. If you continue with your current and unnecessary exemption policy, you do not have our children's best interest. You are simply more intent in using extreme measures to pressure us into compliance because it's the easy way out. We will not let that go. We will continue to fight and will continue to advocate for our children, especially when you will not. Now I'd like to end with a quote from Mrs. Holman. The COVID-19 pandemic has taken much from our nation, our community, and our district over the past 20 months. Let us not allow it to steal from us the strong threads of mutual respect, understanding, compassion, and shared values that for generations have formed the precious tapestry of the Northwestern Lehigh community. We cannot allow these unprecedented times to rob us of those things that make our district so special. So I ask all of you to embody that quote that came to us this week. With everything that has happened in the last 20 months, do not rob us of our rights to stand up and advocate for our children. Do not rob us of our pride in standing up for what is right and ensuring our children have a great educational experience. Be a leader. Better yet, be a tiger. Support the community by allowing us to do what is best for our children's health. Have compassion for the students that are hurting. Understand that this is something that needs to be addressed and changed for the students you represent. And have respect for your community members who will not give up until our voices are heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Langford. Anybody else like to address the board?
I would like to start. My name is Amy Kreitz. I live at 1988 Timberline Court, Fogelsville, Pennsylvania. I come here tonight to speak to the board as well as to my fellow community members and parents. This is completely out of my character, but in recent weeks, the banter amongst the fellow parents in this community has driven me to the place I am now. For those of you who do not know me, I'm a physician assistant serving this community for 20 years. I have specialized in orthopedics during this time, but as of November, my focus will be emergency medicine. I moved to Northwestern 8 years ago from north of the mountain. I have a son in 8th grade and a daughter in kindergarten at Weisenberg. I did more research on this move than imaginable, and never once have I regretted becoming a member of this community. I never once felt like a transplant. I know here my children are receiving a top-notch education from top-notch teachers, but until now, I was 100% certain they were surrounded by the most loving, caring community possible. I'm not here to lecture, but hopefully just to educate. If you are not yet aware, you soon will be. We are in a medical crisis led by COVID. I just left an OR that is running at 68% capacity. We are down 32% of our staff who have abandoned ship because of COVID, or have moved on to hospitals in Philadelphia who are getting paid more. Yesterday, one of our local ERs had 21 patients laying in the emergency room waiting for a hospital bed. 18 patients in a recovery room after surgery waiting to go to a hospital bed. Where does that leave us? That leaves us that our emergency services are tapped out. I cannot guarantee as a member of this community that if you have an emergency, that you can receive the care that you deserve to survive. We are tired. We are more tired than ever. But more than tired, we're scared. We are not scared of COVID. When we chose our profession, we know this is what we sign up for. We are scared for the people without a voice. The kindergartner who was born premature and has lung issues. The kid who beat childhood leukemia and is still immunocompromised. These kids have equal rights to a safe education as a child with no healthcare concerns. If I can operate for 18 hours straight wearing N95 mask, covered by a regular OR mask, inside a helmet, we can all pull together to wear a mask. It is time that this community comes together and starts to practice ethics, not individual ethics, but starts looking at the community like utilitarians. It's the greatest good for the greatest number of the people in this community. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the board?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Joel Berardi, 3540 Illicit Court.
Say the name.
Joel Berardi, 3540 Illicit Court, Mr. Coley. So right out, my first thing is very timely here. So 2 weeks into the school year, there are two schools in our area, Bethlehem School District, Miller Heights Elementary, okay, which went mask mandate on their own right out of the gate. 2 weeks in, they had to close. Outbreaks. Did the masks work? What was the issue there? What happened there? Why did they have to close the school if masks work? Beaver Area High School and Dutch Elementary, another one. Mask mandate from day one. This is not my opinion. I just researched this. Closed. Both schools closed. Outbreak. The 42 school districts that opted out or let the parents opt out, there's no closures. But yet 2 weeks in, we already have schools closing down that have mask mandates, that are having outbreaks. So we have to ask ourselves, now, I'm not saying the masks did it, but certainly doesn't prove that the masks worked. Right? So the governor's order, moving on to the governor's order, we saw two emails from the district, the board, on section 504. So in researching section 504, I see nothing there that requires a doctor's note to qualify as a disability. So there are qualified disabilities, this is true, and there are presumed disabilities that are in there or observed disabilities, okay? So those things, recorded disabilities are in there, okay? Those things are supposedly eligible. So in this district, which is, I think, statewide law, there are IEPs. I don't know as how many there are. My son has an IEP. That is a recorded disability. I would challenge any lawyer anywhere in the world to define me on that or refute me. Why didn't the district mention specifically IEPs in the order? That is a very dangerous line if you screw around with the IEPs. And that's what's happening there. So if a child, now I'm not saying my child necessarily, but if a child can't wear a mask and that disability is reported, that's in the IEP. And you're not going to honor that unless the doctor signs it, and the doctor doesn't want to sign it. That puts you guys in the front lines. Those are liability things you have to think about, not what the governor tells you the liability is. Your liabilities can come from many different ways, in many different areas, not because somebody's going to sue you because they caught COVID in school, which is going to be, I don't know how hard to prove that they caught COVID in school. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys, if you're just going to be conduits for federal and state policies, why on earth do we need you? Let's get rid of you like they want $8,000 to $70,000 on the taxes and have the federal and state government bend us over. Because that's what's happening. The federal government is bending this up and the state government is bending this over, and you guys are facilitating. You have to fight for the community. Whatever the community wants as a majority, that's what you have to do. Now, of course, majority, you can't always just say everything majority. There has to be exceptions. We're willing to work with you guys. We will sign, well, I shouldn't say waiver. I will sign a waiver that indemnifies you people, your precious liability insurance, your mortgages. I will sign a waiver that indemnifies you if my child gets sick. If he doesn't, who else would? There you go. Why on earth can't you talk to a lawyer about that? What kind of lawyer would not want to hear that argument and not defend that? The governor would have nothing to stand on, as he does already with his order, because it allows exceptions. You also didn't say in your emails that the children cannot be forcibly removed from the class for not wearing it. But yet, on your website, you have as number one punishment, child gets forcibly removed for not wearing a mask. You're already in violation of the order. You're already in violation. Get your act together for this community. That addresses her, has to address her. I'm willing to address her issues too, yes. We don't want to cast out.
My child won't wear a mask, and my
No,
child is.
she's talking.
My child's not.
By the way, my child will wear a mask. I'm not even speaking for him.
And you had your turn, sir. You have 5 minutes. You're in your last minute.
Yeah, okay, well, that's basically it.
Okay. Does anybody else like to?
Danny James Funk Jr., 7297 Adams Street in Beecher Foley. First and foremost, I appreciate your board's time tonight. Understanding that you are a soundboard for our community. I speak for myself on these topics I'm going to discuss. It'll only be a few minutes here. But I want to get into some statistics. That is under oath just this week. That the health, Allison B. mentioned that about 14 kids, she thought it was about 14 kids had passed the COVID in the state of Pennsylvania. When asked to the Secretary of Education, he thought there was 1.3 million kids in schools, public schools. It's actually a little higher than that. Okay, so you can see the ratio there. Within our district, within our county, there hasn't been one single death of a child in my county, and that comes right from the CDC website. You can look at other stuff. That's a fact. Okay. Getting to the point of, are the kids really the problem? Are the kids spreading? I question it. We all understand what our society looks like today. And I understand that not every board member is against this and reform. It's your personal choice, as ours. We all understand that death has a 100% success rate. I choose how my child is going to pursue that journey, okay? As in the flesh. Ultimately, we don't have a choice in that. If you can choose, if you can tell me how you're going to pass away, then we can talk about some serious cash. But no one can. We don't know. That's something higher than us, in my opinion. Okay. Some more statistics. I would like to know, if I could ask the board a question, out of the document that was sent to us, whether or not to go mandate or to wear a mask or not. I wonder what those results were. Now, if you could share that with us, that'd be great, to see where we lie. Who was for it and who was not for it. I'd like to know that. I think the community deserves to know. In one of the local hospitals, there's been 1,000 patients. This came out last Friday. You can follow up with this as well. These are facts. They're not in my opinion, these are facts. 1,000 patients were, since January 1, 1,000 patients came through the hospital. Okay, very few kids. As many outbreaks and exposures in the first week of school. I believe there was 9 in elementary and 1 in high school. Those weeks. So again, I ask the board to reevaluate, because I believe you truly had it right the first time. Really good. What I'd ask you is the kids that have a problem. Are we putting our kids through this for reasons of now passed down, which are not law? We all understand law. House of Representatives, the Senate has to pass it, the governor has to sign it. That's a law. In my opinion, that's fact. So
Thank you, Mr. Fong.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Rebecca Easel. I live at 9767 Stagecoach Road. Many of you are familiar from August meeting. So August we came, we were told, go to your doctor, send a note, there's no form, no nothing. Just go to the doctor. I had a problem with that because my son has no medical issues. We're blessed in that way. But I said, you know what, we'll go to the doctor. We're gonna write a note that says, not because he has a medical concern, but because I'm trying as his mother to prevent mental, physical, all the things that come along when a toddler can't look at his teacher smile or vice versa. When kids come home from school and say, I can't tell if my friends like me or not. To prevent medical concerns for my son. And I have my email that I sent to you, I have my articles, I have my statistics. I think we all pretty much have the articles and the statistics memorized, right? What scared me to death tonight, and I'm gonna pray for you and I'm gonna pray for your family, but these masks are not going to keep any of us from catching the virus if that virus is present. And I respect a medical professional who says for 18 hours a day, you're in these situations, and I think you named N95, regular mask, helmet.
Yes.
So why don't we just make that, if we really care about our vulnerable populations, which we do. And if anyone wants to sit here and say that all of us don't care and cry and pray for every single vulnerable elderly person, child, mother, our hearts break. But it is not our job to put our children at risk, to create mental and physical possible ailments, which again, the data is saying 68–70% of our kids are going to have some sort of an adverse reaction from wearing a mask each and every day. I can't sacrifice my children for that. And if I had someone vulnerable in my family, you better believe I'd be doing everything in my power to keep them safe. I would never ask my whole community to make that sacrifice for me at the risk of hurting all those other children. This doesn't make any sense. Help us understand, because we want to be on your team. We are on your team. We are the advocates for our children. And God gave us those children. And darn it, we're going to be here every month until we start feeling like we're hurt. But we're advocates.
Thank you, Mrs. Easel. Anyone else like to address the board this evening? Yes, sir.
My name's Michael Weiler, live at 7463 Lisa Road, Hampton. Yeah, some statistics are just unbelievable. Our population in the state of Pennsylvania is 13.1 million. 1.3 million COVID cases, which comes to about an average of 10%. Deaths in the state, 28,235 as of a couple of days ago, 0.2%. That's 2 out of 1,000 people. And as we've heard, they're not kids. So locally, Lehigh County, population 300,071, 236. Cases 44,000, give or take. Again, an average of 11% deaths, 887, another average of 2%. The government is lying to us. If you believe the government today, you're nuts. Tell us masks won't help. And then they're trying to tell us we're 2 or 3. I don't care. Mr. Delaker, you had it right from day one. When you started, it's government overreach. We live in a great nation because we got to the point where we're not gonna follow the laws of those who ruled over us. And we fought a revolutionary war over it. It's time again. I don't know how long. I respect all of you. I know you're in a tough spot. I know. I'm not gonna belittle you. I know you're in a tough spot. But my concern is for the nation. We cannot continue to have our freedoms knocked out from under us. We have to decide where we're gonna start. What's next? Are we gonna now mandate the masks and then, like California does, mandate vaccinations? Is that what comes next? I'm asking you to decide in your heart and in your mind tonight where you're willing to stand up and say, no, we're not going to follow that anymore. It's a mandate, it's not a law. I read that he has the right to make a mandate to try and stop the spread of disease. For the life of me, I couldn't find it in literature. Because I would like to know, where does that threshold start? At 2% death, 10% vulnerability for cases, he has the right to just bowl us over? I don't know. I do respect you, young lady, for the work you do in the hospital. I understand it's taxing. I gotta be honest with you. I've been in the emergency many years before COVID started, and it was just a crap show then.
You can come hang out with me today.
I know. I'm not
Please come hang out with me today.
I just know
Thank you.
the
Thank you,
medical,
Mr.
the medical situation isn't good either. But
Thank
I'm
you.
just asking you, start thinking about where you're gonna draw the line, because it's not gonna stop. And I need someone to stand up with you and say, enough is enough. We're not gonna follow the laws that you, mandates that you push.
Thank you, Mr. Hallward. Anyone else like to address the board? Meeting? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jen Ott, 3686 Jordan Road. And I thank you for allowing us to be here this evening and listening to us. And first, I do want to say that I think we are a strong community together, and we always have been. And I think we all do genuinely care about each other and each other's feelings and how, but we also know that as parents, we're going to take our sides, our kids' sides. And I just think it's important for us not to be shaming each other or belittling each other for our feelings, because your feelings aren't better than mine aren't better than yours, or more important or less important. But I'm here tonight to talk about the COVID testing. I did write my email to the board, but I just want to point out a few things that I have a question for the COVID testing. It's free, sounds great. It's optional, that sounds wonderful. And we know how that optional quickly turns into mandates. But I feel that this procedure should be done by medical staff in a healthcare facility, a healthcare environment, not in our schools, not in our children's classrooms. Some things to consider. Typically, first, that testing is done by medical staff who are wearing protective gear, PPE. Their faces are covered, they have gowns on, and then they're swabbing you. Or they hand you the stick, you do it in your own personal car, not in a public environment where everyone's children are exposed then to whatever germs are coming off of that swab.
So I'm asking why you would want to intentionally pull germs of any type out of our children's nostrils and expose it to the whole class. What happens when the child sneezes when they're being tested or testing themselves? What happens when the applicator drops and contaminates the surface? Now someone's gonna have to clean that. And I disagree that there would be no disruption into their education. In theory, yes, I heard the consultant's information on that, but I think it's inevitable that it will not go that smoothly. To not interrupt their education, they're gonna have to stop, they're gonna have to do hand washing, they're dropping it, they're sticking it in. Someone different walks into their classroom. Have you been in a kindergarten classroom where someone else walks in? Everything stops. The teacher is not gonna be able to continue teaching. It does disrupt their education. Let's see, and frankly, our teachers, I think, have enough on their plates than to submit them to having to deal with having a laboratory in their classroom, a testing lab. They wear enough hats and they don't need to add healthcare worker to that. And I understand that the teachers aren't expected to administer the test, but we know that they'll be required to assist in some manner. So I'm asking you that you do not approve of COVID testing in our school environment. Allow us parents to take our children to the healthcare facility where COVID testing should be done, not in our classroom. And then I was also questioning, I thought we did install a new ionizer ventilation system. So I'm wondering if that has been completed and how that will be effective for our students and our staff. I think that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Just the ionization system has been installed last Christmas and is in all of the buildings, killing these viruses on the surfaces and in the air. Yes. Anyone else like to address the board before we move on? Yes, sir.
By the way, I agree with the very passionate speeches heard tonight, said by many people.
Can you state your name, please?
Jesse Bauer, 8536 Moore Lane, kindergartner, first grader. It's just funny to sit there on the floor trying to have simple interactions with your child with this on your face. And you can't convey them those basic things like, don't talk right now and stop kicking your feet. Anyway, it's, just small something, instead of being real passionate, which I want to be, and I'm incredibly angry and furious by the state of our country and so many things that have said I resonates with me, and I think a lot of people. I tried to kind of rake through some practical stuff that I thought was interesting when I read through the order. And I'd be curious, lawyers or whatever the board's thought on some of these words that to me seem very broad and very vanilla. And maybe they were written that way because they knew that what they were doing maybe wasn't so legal. And so they wrote very broad terms. And I was blown away by how short the order actually was. It's a miracle. I've never seen anything so short like that from government. In section 3B, it said if wearing a face covering would either cause a medical condition. To me, that word cause is a loophole for anybody who decides, you know what, I'm concerned about my child's medical conditions that may arise tomorrow, next week, next year, in 50 years, when wherever amount of time they had this on their face. We don't know what's going to happen. The data is all over the place, on all sides. We don't really know what we're treading in here, but I see cause. That's a broad term. So when the emails come in, when someone says, I'm sorry, so-and-so is not going to be wearing a mask to school tomorrow, that should be just granted. Boom. Enough said. We don't need a doctor. We don't need all that stuff. It just says we're concerned about cause. Who would determine that? I mean, it's so broad. And I read about some potential causes. These are medical conditions and disorders that we used to be worried about in our country, but now we don't really give a crap about. Major depression, persistent depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, phobias, agoraphobia, and the one that's going to cripple our nation, social anxiety.
Yeah.
Section C also gave another beautiful loophole, and it's very hot right now in our culture because we are all about identity today, and people want to identify as whatever they want to be these days. So for one, I'd like to identify as having power to decide what my children do. And necessary in 3C, when necessary to confirm the individual's identity. I think it's safe to say when you don't really know anything about me like this, but you know a lot more about me like this. I mean, I look like a very different person halfway. And our children are walking in foreign lands with foreign kids. Our identity is majorly in question. Loophole, beautiful loophole. I mean, this is here, forget your liability or concern. Your loopholes are sitting right here. Just like that order from the governor was a loophole around the legislation that was said, you can't do that, Mr. Governor. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go into 1955 and find some old nonsense. Well, here's some nonsense they put in there that we can jump right around and keep everybody happy. Because my children's identity is majorly in question. And I don't think they know who they are, and they certainly don't know who their classmates are. So there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else like to address the board at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Sal C. Kelly, my son Owen Kelly goes to kindergarten at Weissenberg. I'm at 3791 Rhodes Road, Hampton, PA. So I want to thank the surgeon over there for all your hard work. I too am a nurse at Lehigh Valley for 10 years. Worked med-surg on the first COVID unit in the Valley. So I can say, yes, it does affect our adult population. For kids, what are they in for now? Do the research. RSV is hitting us. COVID, not so much. We don't see as many kids in the hospital with COVID symptoms, with COVID complications. I sent a letter to the board, got one simple response. My husband sent it, asking you all to initial your names for any liability that were to happen to my son if anything were to happen with the mask. I will mimic what Ari said in her statement. He comes home with headaches every day. Every day. He's a kindergarten. I don't go and ask him, hey, buddy, do you have a headache today? No, he comes home and tells me he has a headache. He's white. He's wearing a mask that has snot, spit. Spit. That's a cesspool for infection. I sent you stats, real stats from CDC website. What are the stats here? Several studies have also concluded that students are not the primary sources of exposure to COVID-19 among adults in school settings. From the Journal of American Medical Association, young children are not only at low risk of COVID-19, but also do not play a significant role in the spread of COVID-19 while attending school. So what are our concerns? You're putting my child at great risk. And to be honest, I'm gonna put it out there, you're at risk for losing a lot of students at your school.
Yep, I already did that.
Are you willing to lose that money? Because that's gonna come out of your tax dollars.
I'm already gone.
I've been working this for a year and a half. I know how hard it has been. Our ratios, we should be running 1 to 5 for our patients on adult. We're 1 to 8. I don't say it's not a real thing. I know it's a real thing, but for kids, they need to have some sort of normalcy in their lives. And you guys are taking that all away. We're their parents. We know what is best. My sister's 2 teachers, different school districts, they have parental exemptions where they hand in, I don't want my kid to wear a mask, and that's acceptable. So why is it so hard for Northwestern to comply with that? That we get 2 days in advance, it's a slap in the face. I'm an alum from Northwestern. I'm proud to be here. I fought to be back in the school district so my son could go to a great school. I am so ashamed at this point. I had no plans to talk tonight, but I just can't keep quiet.
My son means the most to me, and you guys aren't willing to work with us at all. And let me tell you, Gary Day has been notified and he's working for the community. So.
Now we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Oh, we got two more.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Becky Height, 2678 Windy Road. I'm gonna flip the script here and talk about busing. So at the May 5th board meetings, the board was presented with a new transportation software agreement. It advertised actual routes in real time, easy integration for a seamless experience, automatic route optimization, and student assessment, all with a price tag of $50,000. Mr. Oakes discussed that this would shorten ride times, there would be a parent tracking component added on, and it would work great with the student data software. I think we can all say that that has not happened this year. This has been by far the worst transportation year. My kids have had 4 separate pickup and drop off times in the 3 weeks we've been in school. So I'd just like to know what is being done to get that system in place so that this is not thrown on our wonderful bus drivers' laps and making them deal with this struggle every day.
Thank you, Mrs. Height. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Camille Bernard. I am an alumni as well. I graduated in '97. I'm proud to be an alumni, but I'm having a struggle with that. I teach at another local school and I was like, I'm more proud to work there than I am to send my kids here. We went back at the beginning of the year. Everybody was optional. I was just so refreshed. I was so happy. I couldn't stand it. I was just so glad. Thank you, God, for giving us freedom for the families. They came in to open house, smiles, so happy to be there. There wasn't friction because they had a choice, their God-given choice. I believe we're back to the time of 1776. And we need to make a choice here. And it's not coming from our governor, and it's not coming from our president, but it's coming from everybody in our local community. And we ask you to give us the choice, the freedom to choose what's best for our children. Because you serve the Constitution, not the governor, not the superintendent, not the president. You serve us. We the people. I enjoy going to school every day now. I do not enjoy putting something covering my face. I wear a shield so I don't get a headache. But I can't hear right. I can't see my kids' mouths. I can't hear them the best they should. My youngest daughter has a speech impediment. Her speech therapist said she has to wear a mask. How is she supposed to learn how to speak? We've also sent some exemptions for our other children who attend here. My school district says a medical practitioner is good enough for an exemption. And they just, whatever they say, they accept the medical practitioner. They don't specify DO and MD. We had a medical practitioner wearing a face covering would either cause a medical condition or exacerbate existing one, including respiratory issues that may impede breathing, a mental health condition, or a disability. We sent that in, it was denied. We also went to our family doctor, a DO. Please excuse a student from mask wearing due to an underlying medical condition. We sent that in, it was denied. We have to go with the school district form. We told our doctors they don't accept what we gave them. They said every American from the beginning of his life to attend enjoys a fundamental right to privacy protected by both honor, the Hippocratic Oath, and by law, the US Code and the Pennsylvania Code. They said we shouldn't be filling out those forms. Why? Why? This is 1776. Now's your time. These children look up to you. Our soldiers died for our freedom. We're standing on holy ground. Now's your time to shine. Now's your time to give everything. Jesus gave everything on the cross. We're all sinners. You're gonna stand before him one day. I thank him for his blood shed for me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Cordy Boyle, DO, 6041 Herring Court, New Tripoli, Pennsylvania. Today I come before the board as a physician, a medical doctor with 2 decades of training and experience, but also as a parent of a kindergarten child and a first grader. I want to express my gratitude for a successful 2020 to 2021 school year despite all odds. We felt fortunate to have our children educated in a safe environment. Reflecting on the past academic year, there were several strategies that the board and administration put into place to keep our schools operating without compromising the health and well-being of our children. One that again stands out is the use of universal masking. A CDC study from November to December of 2020 across 169 K-5 schools showed infection rates were 37% lower in schools where students and faculty and staff had a mask requirement. As you are aware, the governor has issued a mask mandate for K-12 schools. As a physician who has cared for countless patients with COVID-19, I'm very aware that the pandemic is far from over. I know that there are many in this room who disagree with my thoughts. I know there's also arguments where parents are quoting a JAMA article regarding masked children and elevated carbon dioxide levels. Of note, this article was retracted by JAMA within weeks of publication due to numerous scientific issues regarding methodology of the study, as well as issues related to the validity of the study's conclusions. The issue of universal masking in our district is a public health concern. Just as we universally enforce speed limits, seatbelts, and vaccinations in our schools to prioritize the safety and well-being of our children. Many argue that masks are uncomfortable for their children. I don't know about you guys, but anyone who has ever wrestled a child into a car seat can attest those aren't the easiest either, and many children complain that it's uncomfortable. But we do it with the goal of protecting our children. This isn't about opinions. We should rely on the expertise of physicians and scientists. The American Academy of Pediatrics, a group of 67,000 doctors who specialize in the care of children. Specialists for our children, the ones we trust with our newborn babies, they recommend universal masking. Many complain that they're unable to have their exemption forms completed. Why? Because doctors believe in masks. We really do care about you and your family. An outbreak of COVID in our district, the death of just one of our students. Those are things that would devastate our community, the close-knit community. Those are things worth rallying for. Those are things worth fighting for. We need to put aside any motivations other than the health and well-being of our children, our educators, and our staff. As a physician, as a mother, as a neighbor, and a friend, I implore the community to trust the experts. I would never walk into a mechanic and tell him how to fix my transmission. To the board and the administration, I truly appreciate your support of the mask mandate. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you for coming, and we will have another opportunity at the end of the meeting tonight. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Rose Moyer. I live at 6547 Hollenbach Road in New Tripoli. I'm here because I have an 11th grader that I'm concerned with. But before I get started on that, I can relate to everything that everybody's been saying here. I've got this 2-page presentation and I'm probably not even gonna use most of that because a lot of it has been covered already by these families and the concerns of being a parent. But what I did want to bring up is it's been brought to my attention that based upon some facts that the acting Secretary of Health, Beam, seems to have violated the law by issuing an August 31st order because the order is a rule or regulation and Beam did not follow the rulemaking procedures that are required under the Commonwealth Document Law and Regulatory Review Act. So waiting to hear back from that, but yet we've implemented it because she suggested it. And I guess what I kind of find, and I don't even think it's funny, but lack of a better word, I find funny is that she's an attorney. She's not even a doctor or a medical doctor. That's like me trying to say that I can take over Jennifer Holman's spot and I can be a superintendent just because I can be. That's a little ridiculous to me, and these are the guidelines that we're following are coming from an attorney. Not that attorneys aren't smart, but they're not medical people. My other thing is, you were talking about the possibility that, you know, if these guidelines are mandates are not laws. We've all determined that here. I mean, I've got definitions of what a mandate is and what a law is. And these definitely are mandates. And sometimes they you know, they can't be enforced. But you were talking about possibilities of being sued professionally or personally. And from what I was digging up, it says school district members cannot be sued. But the intimidation and fear factor coming from the state may be pretty scary to you as school board members. And again, you're doing a job probably that I would want nothing to do with. So thank you for doing your job. But, you know, here we go. It says the PA Constitution does give immunity to the government. So schools fall within that sovereignty and immunity. You can only be sued for one of 11 specific reasons, such as accidents involving school vehicles, defects in school property, school nurses administering different vaccines, which I don't even know where that came from because they usually don't. But it says that, but not for when a child comes into contact with a virus. So that means that we can't be sued. You can't be sued as a school district if one of our children come in contact with a virus, such as they were using an example of smallpox, measles, tuberculosis, COVID-19. It's a virus. So I don't see where you would be responsible or a lawsuit would stand up for that. I don't know. I get where everybody's coming from here, but as a parent, I feel like if I walked into your household and told you what to do with your son or daughter, that, you know what, I don't think you're handling that right, and I think we're gonna do it this way. That doesn't fly. We're parents, and you know what, I think we know what is best for our children. So I got, you guys are between a rock and a hard place, but I think you have a lot to digest and think about, because what that lady was saying down there, our kids, we're gonna start yanking them, and they're gonna go to either a charter or a cyber school, because my kid's not gonna go to school and sit there for 6-7 hours a day. It's bad enough, he has to do it up at LCTI. And I tolerate that because he worked so hard to get there. So I have to, you know, I have to support him. He looked forward to his high school year so he could go up there. But then he has to come back here and wear it. The only reason he's in school now is because they told me there was no mask mandate. And then I talked to Nicole Zimmerman and she said that, yeah, you can transfer him back into an online program, but she was asking for the courtesy of, you know, doing it like at the end of a marketing period so it doesn't screw things up. But I can tell you, I'm not going to continue to have my child sitting there and wearing a mask all day long. It's not going to happen, and I would really regret. I would be sad if I had to take him out of the school district. He really enjoys his school district. He came from Parkland. He feels like these are more his people, his tribe, and you know what? And he's doing very well here. But again, if I have to yank him out, I'll do what I have to do for my own kid and his benefit and his welfare.
Anybody else like to address the board at this time, or wait till the end of the meeting? One more.
My name is Brian Vogel, living at 6233 Huntersville Road, Burnsville. Y'all know we've been dealing with this shit for a year and a half now. Sometimes we have masks, sometimes we don't. This week we need, this week we don't. Obviously, if things are so bad, nothing has changed in the last year. So what are we really doing here? You said in the beginning of this that the governor are overstepping their boundaries. Tell us what we need to do. We all come from different walks of life. Some of us have certain problems that we need to address. Some of us are physicians that always see sick people. Talk to a firefighter, all they're gonna see is everybody's house burns down. Talk to a cop, all they're gonna see people steal shit and draw like idiots. We all come from different walks of life. So why is it that we now let the governor or any other
official.
if any other official for that matter, tell us what to do. They come from their political walk of life. What does that give the right to tell us what's good or bad or better for our kids? I think we all come from our own area. We all know what's best for our kids. I'm not saying you should wear a mask or you shouldn't, but it should just be your choice. Nothing more than that. You can have an exception to have your kid go out and play football or wrestling or whatever, no mask included, do whatever the hell you feel like it. But your first and sixth grader or whatever, gotta sit in the class next to somebody with a mask on, there can't be exemption for that. How can that be possible? You have your own certain problem, condition, whatever, then that's something you gotta deal with. The rest of us should not have to. All I think we're really asking for is our own choice to do what we want, feel best for our own kids.
Thank you, sir. We did get your name.
Brian Kunkel?
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Again, thank you for coming this evening, and there will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting to address the board if you care to stay and hear some of the other business that the school is involved in. And I think there's some good news we're gonna hear about this evening, as well as other business of the board. So with that, we are going to take our modified agenda. No, I'm sorry, we have approval of the minutes first for the board meetings of August 18th and for the workshop of September 1st. Minutes have been sent to you, and I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Fatsinger, second by Mr. Rex. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And at this time, I would like to ask DJ Walbert. DJ, you have, I think, Dan McCauley with you. This is from our Northwestern Lehigh Education Foundation. Would you like to introduce them?
I certainly will. The two gentlemen approaching tonight don't really need much of an introduction. They've been here many times. They are some of the leadership on the board of our Northwestern Lehigh Education Foundation, DJ Wilbur and Dan McCauley. And I believe they are here with some good news and present some dollars through fundraisers. I will turn it over to them.
Yes, so appreciate that. Thanks, Mr. Delafer and Mrs. Holman. Certainly have a large crowd this evening, so I think it would be very prudent to at least educate some of the people in terms of what the foundation is. We are a nonprofit organization, and our sole mission is to raise private funds to improve the educational programs for our school district. So we've been around for 14 years now, and feel we've been very successful at supporting the school district, primarily through the great efforts in terms of partnerships and sponsors that we have in and around our school district. In fact, we have a couple here today. King Spry is a sponsor of the foundation, as well as Nutripoli Bank. So John, there's John. So much appreciated, Nutripoli Bank. Thanks, John, for all the continued support, as well as many other organizations and private parties in the school district. We give funds every year and solely about figuring out with the administration what the needs are for the educational programs. So we're just not handing over money to them and saying, "I'll do what you want." We're making sure that those are going to educational programs that they need at that time. And I think this last year is a perfect example of exactly what that means. So we know approximately how much money we're going to have to give them. And there are certain programs that we continue doing, like smart boards in the classrooms. Probably all of your children benefit from that in the classrooms today. And we continued that. But through this last year, we actually had to take a sidestep and say, okay, the needs have changed in the school district. So we took a bunch of the funds that we had and transferred them over to the hybrid learning programs. A lot of audio and video equipment for the administrations and the teachers and whatnot to be able to implement that hybrid program. And it's wonderful to be able to do that. And because of that, we are very proud to be here today to present the school district with a check for almost $143,000.
That again, $142,850. And what does that bring up from the total over a million?
Way over a million. In fact, we are almost at $2 million of getting to the school district through our lifetime. I think it's also important to say things like that. I think it's important also to note that in the last year, in the middle of everything that's been going on, we made the very ambitious decision to actually hire staff for the foundation, which we've never had in the middle of all of this. And we are starting to see the fruits of those labors. We are seeing tremendous growth in our numbers, and we expect those to continue to grow. And we expect these numbers to actually get even bigger in the future. And that's what our expectation is. And our goal is to make this school district the best educational school district around. And I think that we're continuing to go in that direction with the support that we have. And we're going to continue to work with the school district to try to make that happen. So thank you very much.
Dan, for that presentation this evening. I told you to stick around for some good news, and we have more. And we are blessed as a district to have the leadership of DJ and Dan and this foundation of ours. It's one of the premier foundations in Pennsylvania for public schools, and they have certainly brought a lot of resources for us to use in our school to make it better that we could normally not afford with our operating budget. So next on the agenda item tonight is a 6.03, which is the general obligation note series 2021. And we have with us tonight Kevin Reed and Scott Scherer. Kevin is from Kings Pry and Scott is from PFM, our financial advisors. And what we're going to do tonight is take action to refinance one of our mortgages, one of our bond issues. And it's a $5.7 million bond that has come to call so we can refinance. And in partnership with the Nutropoli Bank, and we have John Hayes here from Nutropoli Bank, who is setting us up for a 1.65% fixed interest rate, which drastically reduces the cost for this borrowing for the renovations that were made to our school. In terms of $1.25 million savings in the financing, in the interest costs for this bond that we're taking action on tonight. And with that, Scott, if you'd like to fill in the details on this and walk us through the resolution that we have.
Sure. Well, I'll just be very brief to go through some of the numbers. Maybe if you could just turn to page 4 of the presentation, I'll just kind of skip to the chase before I turn it over to your bond counsel. But I think that was a great summary of the transaction. Again, what we're focused on, if you go one more page, please. So we are focused on looking at refinancing the 2017 bonds, which are now legally able to be refinanced. We brought the opportunity to the school board back in August. We then went as our first step to go talk with Nutropoli Bank, and as you said, John Hayes is here. We got a very favorable reaction from the bank with those discussions and came back with the proposal of a 1.65%. So right now, the 2017 bonds have an interest rate of 4%. And so with this proposal, this would take it down to 1.65, and that's what's generating savings over in the far right-hand side in column 10, which total to just about $1,250,000. And that is net of the issuance costs and any state reimbursement as well. So overall, an extremely efficient transaction. If you see the percentage number down in the bottom right-hand corner where the school district share is 23%. So you've heard me talk over the years about looking at doing a refinancing when net savings are 2% or 3% of what's being refunded. Here we're 23%. So almost 10 times more efficient than I'll call it kind of the traditional type transaction. So overall, again, very pleased with the proposal from Nutropoli Bank. Again, John's here to answer any questions. So from the numbers perspective, again, we're looking at doing a $5,780,000 loan with Nutrafoli Bank. We're keeping the same amortization, same end date, basically the same term of that prior transaction. We're not extending the debt or shortening it, just basically going from that 4% rate to 1.65% rate. And that's what's generating the savings that would be taken more or less annually for the remaining life of the loan of about $110,000. So again, that's kind of the numbers aspect of it. I will turn it over to Kevin Reed to briefly review the resolution before you.
Thank you, Scott and Mr. Delacour. School board, pleasure to be before you again. I will also be brief. I know that several members of the board have gone through this process before, but it is important just to set forth a couple of reminders. And the first reminder is you have an attractive proposal from Nutrafoli Bank. Scott's run through the numbers, so you have to take advantage, or at least you need to consider taking advantage of that. And there's a certain process to do that. And first and foremost, the process is a resolution before you this evening, which authorizes your finance team, which consists of board officers, administration, PFM, my office, and also the bank, to take the necessary steps to get this done. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, you're authorizing us to do it. Secondly, we have to file certain documents both with the state and the federal government. And thirdly, certain board officers need to sign certain documents so we can memorialize the transaction such that there's the appropriate paperwork that the bank has with regards to the repayment, albeit at these lower rates, for the bonds, or for this, in this instance, for the note to its term, to its maturity. So that's in essence what our role is. There's certain, the other thing I would say is that with public school district transactions and municipal transactions, one of the benefits is that these are tax exempt rates. So these are rates that we wouldn't get, I wouldn't get on my mortgage because I'm not a tax exempt organization, but you are. So to do that, there's certain federal forms you have to file to establish that. So that's part of the process as well. Let me stop there to see if there's any questions concerning the process or procedures. Should the board take favorable action here this evening, we would file all that necessary paperwork. And I believe, Scott, we're looking probably at a closing sometime mid-November-ish.
Any question for Scott or Kevin? We've been through this before. We're very fortunate, blessed to have PFM and King and our business manager keep an eye on our finances like this, and when an opportunity arises to take advantage of it. And this has been one of the most rewarding, most payback that I've seen since I've been on the board. And I think we're ready to take action. Any other questions? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution by Mr. Weiser.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fatsinger. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. And thank you very much for bringing this good news to us. And I think we have another opportunity in a year or two.
About a year from now.
A couple more bonds that are coming to maturity.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Good.
Thank you very much. You bet.
Thank you. Safe trip home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I could just say, John is here from Nutrafoli Bank. I did say on Dave's behalf, Dave, the president of the bank, could not be here tonight and did express the partnership. And I don't know if John has anything you'd like to say on the thing.
That's what I wanted to say, Mrs. Holman. I wanted to thank everyone on the board. Thanks, Scott. Thank Kevin as well. And on behalf of Dave Munson, our president and CEO, we are very happy to work again with the school district on financing matters. This is not our first opportunity, and I'm sure it won't be our last. It's a pleasure to work with the team, and we're happy to support the school district and the community. So thank you.
Thank you, John. I apologize for overlooking you, and it's very important for everyone to know that this is part of our community. Nutrafoli National Bank has helped us since this school started, since the school district started. And they are available for our financial needs. And in this case, they could outperform any of the bonds that we could go for through a PFM And we are just so fortunate to be able to partner with New Florida Bank and keep it in the community.
Right.
And it's just tax savings for everybody sitting in here and paying taxes at home. Thank you very much for being here, John, and for stepping up to help us out with this refinance.
Appreciate it.
Okay, where are we on this agenda now? We have superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. I'd just like to say to everyone here this evening, thank you for all of your comments. I know that we might not always agree, or you obviously in some cases don't agree with the positions or information we put out. We will always try to be transparent with the information we put out and information as to why we're making decisions, even if at the end of the day, it might be a decision that might be contrary from what you believe. Our goal has and continues to be 5 days per week of instruction in school, and our hope is to continue to maintain that. And all of the decisions that we make and will make going through the future are with that goal in mind, and to do so safely. I would like to give a couple updates. Since the beginning of the school year, our kids are excited to be back. I mean, it's our first board meeting since the kids have been back. Our staff are great. They're thrilled to be here. The schools are alive, the sports fields are alive. Certainly with excitement. We did experience, as you've heard in the last meeting, and we'll continue to hear a little more this evening, some logistical challenges with the new school year. However, our students are doing a great job settling in. New students are learning some content and loving being at school. So we're also really pleased about the two presentations that originally were after my presentation, but certainly tonight were before. Saving $1 million in savings, $1.2 million in the bond refinancing, as well as the continued support from our Northwestern Lehigh Education Foundation, and you were able to hear both of those. The last item is not a great item. We are continuing, as you saw when you came in this evening, doing some heavy recruiting for bus drivers. Some of the information that Mrs. Height spoke about and you heard about in the last meeting, we are experiencing some personnel challenges with our bus drivers in terms of physically not having enough of them. If you look, that's a nationwide shortage. That is not a Northwestern problem. That is not a Commonwealth problem. There are districts and organizations that are hiring 50, 60, 70, 80,000 CDL drivers. We have reached out to try to do some recruiting, as you saw the bus as you came in, as well as holding a job fair. We did look at, is there a contractor, that we've done 2 runs previously with Brandywine or other school districts that could help us out, or even potential of chartering some of our sports trips. We will bring back some information to this board in terms of our recommendation. One of the things we are looking at, and I will communicate this out to our families, is the potential for a parent opt-out of transportation, that if they were to opt out, that might allow us to condense and shorten some of our runs. Right now, we do have all of our substitutes, all of our grounds folks, mechanics, and our director of operations on the road pretty much daily to fill the runs in order to get students to and from school. But we do need to come up with a permanent solution, because it is a long process to get someone certified as a CDL, particularly with their student endorsement and their air brake endorsement, as well as us not having the applicants right now to be able to do that. And so we do need to bring back to the board some sort of recommendation about a permanent solve. We do have some intermediary plans in terms of parents opting out that we will be considering in the near future. Because if we do have people that are stricken with sickness, whether that's COVID or other related, there could be days that we physically don't have enough drivers to transport. That is one of the reasons why some of the runs are longer, and we are experiencing some of the difficulties we are trying to deal with a driver shortage. Any other questions? I will certainly take it. I did, you have asked in the last meeting, I actually think it was Dr. Warfel who is online for some information. We have been sending the statistics to you every single Friday about our own data. Just to give you an idea about the number of data in comparison from last year to this year in terms of our cases, we had 4 positive cases at this time last year. This year we have 20. We had 10 students in quarantine this time last year, and now we have 52. So the numbers locally as you get with our children in our buildings are increased in comparison to where they were last year. We hope that we can continue to maintain safe and appropriate learning so that we can maintain to keep kids in school, because that is, I think, everyone in the room's #1 goal. I will certainly take any questions if you have them.
And I do have, I guess, clarifying questions, maybe more just so everyone's aware of the busing policies. And thanks, Jessica, for providing me some feedback over the last couple of days on this. But just for, I guess, general awareness, right? We as a public school, my understanding based on your feedback and then what we've learned before is that we technically don't have to provide busing to the public school students. If I understand the letter of the law, we do have to, even if we were to opt out of providing busing to the public schools, if I'm reading it correctly, Jessica, we do still have to provide to the private schools, even if we were to say there is no, is that a correct statement?
Mr. Leiser, so under the school code, there is no requirement to provide transportation to resident students. If you provide transportation to resident students, you have to provide identical transportation to non-public students. Charter students, under the charter law, you are required to provide them with transportation. Despite what you do.
That's what I was getting at. Okay.
Despite what you do for your resident students or your non-public resident students. So in the event that you would say you were not going to transport, you could not transport for resident students, you could not transport for non-public, but you are still required by law to transport charter school students.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And Mr. Leiser's question came up because there are some local districts and we're doing everything we can not to be here. But there are districts that have had to make phone calls that say bus 9 and 10 are not being transported this week. And so we're doing everything we can to avoid being there, including filling with our grounds folks, Mr. Oaks, and our substitutes. But if you know anyone who would like to be a bus driver or a van driver, the application process is open. And I think if we can bring people in, that will certainly eliminate the problem much more quickly.
I saw an article today that Massachusetts is using the National Guard to bus students.
Mr. Rex told me earlier today that Philadelphia called in the National Guard today to transport students for the exact same problem we're dealing with.
Mrs. Holman, it's Jim.
Yes, Dr. Warfel?
A question about the numbers you just shared, the incidence rates with COVID. Have there been cases of students who have had to leave school to be quarantined because they were exposed to a positive case from another student in the school building?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe so in the school building, but that is a contact tracing issue. And so that is trying to connect dots and trying to determine whether or not there is common themes between students, like common classrooms, common sports teams, common homerooms, common bus seats, common lunch tables. If we end up having that, that is certainly one of the reasons for a closure in terms of an outbreak in an individual classroom or location that we believe spread to be happening. I'm not going to, I haven't gone through every single case to say definitively it has or hasn't happened, but I can do so and get that information to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Warfel. Any other questions?
I have one, Bill. Ms. Holman, the busing program that we purchased, where do we stand with that? And since we're kind of talking about busing right now, or maybe Mr. Oaks can address that.
Sure. I'll start. Mr. Oaks, Dr. Susoma can certainly pinch hit. The busing program, I would say it's not all the bus program's fault in terms of there are certainly things about a new program that are logistical that you have to set up and you have to do there. And the company has tried to help us through what has been struggles with the routing. It doesn't know some of the areas of the roads and the areas that comes from a human being, putting in areas you're not able to transport, roads that appear on maps that are dirt roads, places you can or can't make a turn with a school bus. And so some of those things are things that we have to put into the system from a human being's perspective. Mr. Oaks and the transportation office team over the first weekend and the second weekend in an attempt to fix the routing and the times and the rosters worked diligently, not only with the company, but also with our drivers to physically change the routes. Mr. Oaks and Dr. Stomach, I don't know if you wish to add to that.
Yeah, it certainly has been trying for all of us, and it doesn't, it's hard to even express how difficult of a challenge it was. And what we've tried to do as a team is to facilitate runs that are as efficient as possible. And throughout that process, you have to set parameters, and setting parameters of how far can a student walk, or how far, where should a stop be, and those type of things are easy on paper and easy in a computer program until you realize that it's a dangerous highway that the student is walking. So every one of those students that have to get that stop adjusted isn't something that can just, the program can do on its own. You have to facilitate that information into it. So the parameters of setting up routes and software is that you set, I can walk an eighth of a mile to the bus stop, or a mile and a half, and you start at that point, and then you have to break out every individual student to what's appropriate for them. And that's a daunting task that we don't take lightly, and we take very serious, because it's the safety of our students. And that process of changing those runs and changing those routes, I will certainly allow Dr. Snow to talk about. Somewhere in the back end, there's database complications that created these trees, is what they called them, and it created errors for the upload into Sapphire. And so in order to fix that, we sort of had to go back to old school and manually update the data sheet that would go into Sapphire for all the parents to see. And that wasn't an easy task either. And I'm not trying to say the job is too hard for us or we couldn't handle it. It's just all of these things that have occurred, and the lack of drivers and the ability to get these runs out efficiently. It falls back in what I said last month or last week, last board meeting. The drivers were our biggest asset, and they, listening to them and using their knowledge is what really has helped us facilitate where we are today. And although we got it mostly there, we still have a long road ahead of us. But I think the software issue, the database issue is sort of worked out through the technology department and through their technology department. It's on the road to recovery, I'll call it, and it's getting better daily.
And we'll still use that program.
Yes, it's a very good program.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Superintendent Holman, it wasn't said tonight, so I was wondering if you could provide clarification to everyone that in addition to listening to the board, you have also listened to the local health networks. Because if you take the governor out of the equation, they've been working with all school districts, not just ours, because regardless of what school you go to, there's repercussions of the overusage of the hospital when someone breaks their arm, if a child breaks their arm, or someone has a heart attack, on why the hospital cannot be overburdened, and what we're trying to do to prevent that as well as prevent the repercussions of COVID. But that's just not always said about locally, just like Nutripoli Bank is an asset to us, the local health networks are as well.
Certainly, Mrs. Lister, I think the most unpopular thing I could say tonight, I'm going to say, it could be very much my decision in the future, and I very much might mandate masks myself. And so that's the most unpopular thing I could say, but the bottom line is we are going to make the hard decisions about doing what's best. And although there was a lot of focus tonight on the governor's mandate, at some point, whether it's an injunction or it is a court case or it is a change of a law, that decision will come back to this board and this superintendent to make. And right now, our numbers and our cases would not prevent the removal of masks in order to continue 5 days learning. Our health networks on both Lehigh Valley and St. Luke's, one of the benefits of living in the Lehigh Valley is we do have a very strong healthcare system. Those both networks have been on numerous phone calls with both our Emergency Management Council on a monthly basis, as well as with superintendents providing data, providing all of the data broken down by age brackets, broken down by what the hospitals are seeing, broken down by information in terms of how severe, what the severity of the disease is and what they're seeing in the hospitals. And have given us recommendations even when we continue to maintain a mask optional standpoint. And we did remain and start the school year there. But the numbers from August 27th to now have significantly changed in terms of the number of cases, the severity, as well as what we're seeing in the schools that will result in a shutdown by the Department of Health, and we will end up on a remote learning. And I don't think anyone around this table wants that, or anyone in this room wants that. And so, yes, our health networks have been, we would not have, and I've said this before, for those of you who were here when Dr. Pelosi, who is the doctor who had retired, we honored him because we would not have gotten through the last year and a half or 20 months now without the support of our health networks. Calling about things, we're not medical experts, we're educational experts. We call when we're not sure, we call when there's clarifying information that they can help us understand or help us decipher. And they have been ready and willing, both networks, to be able to provide that guidance to us and provide, statistics and data without even being asked. But we have a very strong combination of health networks in the Valley who have been a huge asset to our success in keeping kids in school last year and will continue to be.
Any other questions for Mrs. Holman? Thank you for your report and for all that information. Now we'll move into personnel action, and I would ask Mrs. Matika if you would please walk us through the personnel agenda.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Tonight we have 22 items that we're seeking your approval on. Items highlighted in yellow on the second page were added between Friday and Tuesday. We do have a new employee with us tonight. You approved her last month. It is our first position and our first social worker. She's with us tonight, and I will ask Mrs. Edmonds, who's online, to introduce Laurie and tell you a little bit about Laurie Plattsburgh, who's sitting over on the other side. Mrs. Edmonds, are you there?
Thanks, thanks, Mrs. Matika. Yeah, so we're welcoming Laurie Platzko as our new social worker this evening. Laurie has a bachelor's degree from DeSales University in psychology. She also has her master's degree from Marywood University in social work. Previous to coming to us at Northwestern Lehigh School District, she has 15 years as a treatment specialist in a partial hospitalization program with the IU-20. She also did some outpatient counseling with Concern Counseling and Pine Brook. Laurie also worked at BHA for the last 5 years, and she was a director in 3 of their different programs. One was Pride, Partial, and their day treatment programs. Laurie's a licensed social worker currently. She is seeking licensure in the clinical social worker field. She brings a lot of experience and knowledge to working with a variety of student needs, and we're really excited to have her on board. Laurie, I'll pass it over to you for any additional words.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for allowing me the opportunity to meet all of you. I look forward to working with everyone and supporting the students, families, as well as the staff here at Northwestern Lehigh. And if anyone needs anything, I'm here.
Thank you, Laurie. Today was her first day, so I do ask you to put on the items this evening. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Scheffler. Second by Mrs. Lister. Comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Aye.
Motion carried. Congratulations, Mrs. Plotsko. Welcome to this district, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
There were 2 abstentions to this vote. Myself on item B2. Mr. Hernandez on item B2.
All right, I'll walk out.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
And best wishes to you. Under curriculum and building issues, we have item 3.01, which is the program that has been discussed at the workshop and further discussion this evening, and it is on the agenda for action this evening.
I will certainly introduce it and hand it over to Dr. Snovic, and I do believe Dr. Hogan is on. This was discussed in detail at the workshop meeting. It is an optional testing process. We discussed the free part in the last meeting. We recognize nothing is free. Someone is paying for it. But we also believe in the mitigation strategies. And so if there's a layered approach to mitigation, if this is something a family chooses to want to do, it was before the board as an optional testing option. I will turn it over to Dr. Sosnovic and Dr. Hogan.
I have nothing additional to add, although there were some comments earlier that I asked Dr. Hogan if you could please address them.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, so much for having me today. I know that it's difficult in normal situations to open and operate a school, and really applaud everybody for making in-person learning happen this year. As a parent of PA school children, I really appreciate it. So a couple items came up by the audience that I'd love to address here for the record, and happy to take any more questions that might arise as well. So the first is that medical personnel can be enlisted by the school to actually carry out the testing. So we have found our experience with students is that it's relatively easy for them to self-administer the swab, but a healthcare professional is there to supervise if a school community elects for that. They can even assist if a parent gives consent and the school determines that that is an adequate way of carrying out the testing. We do like to reiterate that this is a voluntary program, so it's for that option of choice for parents. Those that would like to have their student participate in the testing are allowed to do that, and those who don't have to consent. So it's completely voluntary. A healthcare professional, when they arrive, if they're assisting or any staff member that would be brought to the school to support, would be fitted with PPE, and they would also be trained on how to carry out this testing program with minimal disruption to the classroom. So in the case of pooled testing, which is what we've been talking about here, we have seen that it takes only a few minutes, maybe up to 10 minutes if the entire class is consenting, to do the collection and to actually, combine all of those swabs into a tube. And so typically the way it will work is the healthcare support staff will arrive, they will have their PPE on, and they will go around the room, supervise a student as they're taking the swab or assist with it, and then place that swab, as our students call affectionately, boogers down into the tube and cap it before moving to the next student. I did hear the question of, what happens if a swab is dropped? And so they are trained to disinfect that area, but collection happens in a socially distant space. So that swab would not be dropped onto another student's desk, for example. There would be adequate separation. Schools that want to take extra steps can also set up a area in the room that's not used that can be cleaned before collection and after collection, and students can be invited up one by one to submit their sample for those that consent. Teachers are not required to participate. In fact, if a teacher wanted to leave the room while this was happening, we've seen that happen in other school districts, and other staff has arrived to help with that if that's really a concern. But teachers do not have to participate. They don't have to supervise. They're not asked to assist with collection. If a teacher wants to participate, that can be, entertained with the school community and the administration. I think that was largely what I heard. I know that there were questions about germs being present on the swab. We have not seen any incident of disease spread by this collection method because, again, the collection is happening in the space of the student away from other students and is done by a professional who's trained on this program.
Dr. Hogan, one more from me. Can you just remind the board how extensively this program has been instituted nationally?
Yes, so we are a national provider and have been at this for a long time. We're operating in states across the US from as large as California to as small as Maine. We have had success. We've seen success with this program, especially in cases where you have high COVID rates. So we have had schools that have started a pool testing program with a high positivity rate, but within the matter of 3 to 4 weeks, be able to drive that down to a national average of about 1% of positive pool collections. So one individual per every 100 samples that are collected. So it can be a very, very effective program for helping to identify cases, get those numbers down low, and keep them low for the remainder of the school year.
Questions or? I guess the one thing that wasn't clear when we reviewed this at the workshop, it wasn't clear to me that this was going to actually happen in in the classroom, in and amongst the rest of the class. In other words, when we talked about an opt-in model, I guess in my mind, I envisioned 3 kids in a classroom, family, kids decide to opt in, and they leave and they go take care of this, or they handle it on the way in, or something. I guess now, as I'm understanding it, we're talking about a disruption of an entire classroom where now you've got literally some kids participating and some kids not participating in and amongst themselves. And I think I would have to agree, it sounds like an incredibly disruptive experience in the classroom setting. And it feels like it delays the educational curriculum that we would be providing. So I think that's where I hesitate. I understand as a statistician and researcher myself, I understand the importance of the data side of this, but in the context of disruption of what it provides, I have serious reservations about the program.
I can speak to that if you'd like. We have had schools that have voiced that concern, and so we've worked with them to set up a logistical system that would work better for their community than the healthcare professional coming into the classroom. And we do find that the 10 minutes or so that it would take to do that sampling helps keep the school classroom open for the entire year. And that's because you're able to identify that asymptomatic individual as early as possible and break that cycle of transmission, preventing further outbreak within the school community. So our schools often see that, that very minimal weekly disruption, especially if there's flexibility in how that will be rolled out so that it's unique for that school community, to be a very, very good strategy, an additional layer in the mitigation toolbox to keeping the classroom doors open.
How often are the tests given to each child?
Would be defined by the district, weekly or every 2 weeks. We will look at the number of individuals consenting, and best practice recommends weekly. But to further address Mr. Leiser's comment, the actual program itself is flexible enough to we could design it however we want to. So if we do not, or the board does not wish for this to be conducted in the classroom, we could logistically set it up in any manner we would like it to be. So it would have eliminate those disruptions of concern.
I have some reservations as well, but in a different matter. For me, it seems like this program is searching for positive cases, and I don't like that. And secondly, I think if the parents are looking for some voluntary testing, I think it should be their personal choice and not the business of the school district. So that's my. It's kind of where my feelings are right now. Thanks.
I just make a real quick comment, and I like the idea of the testing. What I don't like is the method of being tested, how somebody's gonna walk into their classroom and hand them a Q-tip and say, stick it up your nose, and they give you the results of that.
Any other questions or concerns? We had one session, workshop session describing this to us, and understand it's voluntary and all that, and I'm not sure what the appetite is in our community to have something like this going on in our school, regardless of what the benefits are that we think we can gain from doing this. It's relatively new. There are some states and schools that are doing it now, but you're going to be on the leading edge of this one. And I understand that by being voluntary, the parents need to know something about what this entails. And we do have, I think was said, we would have informational sessions set up for parents to come, and I'm not sure how many how many nights and how many hours? Do you recall what that was? Would take to orient the parents into being able to make a choice?
If the board approved this to happen tonight, we would then work with Dr. Hogan and the concentric team to set up an informational session for parents where they could come and learn, be informed and make a decision whether or not they chose to participate in this program. Concentric and the program itself through the Department of Health has a number of various resources already prepared to provide families in multiple languages so they could best understand the and be educated on the program so they can make a decision in what's the best interest for their family.
So we really can't take a survey because nobody knows what this is about. So they wouldn't really know how to respond to a survey to get a feel for how many parents would be interested in opting into this program. I guess my personal opinion is that, since we heard about this 2 weeks ago for the first time, and with all the other issues that we are faced with right now, I would like to suggest tabling this and being able to learn more about it and bring in some more information about who's doing it and how successful it is and what we would be doing with the data. Maybe Dr. Sisnobi, you could talk a little about how we talk a lot about analyzing data and monitoring the cases. And that was the first track that we put into our health and safety plan to take a look at the cases. And you heard that Mrs. Holman talk about how they jumped up from last year. And how would this fit in with the information that we already have from county and the zip code tracking that you do already? How would this information add to our ability to make decisions about, and what would those decisions be? Would it be just more stringent mitigation or what would we do with the data?
Are you asking me right now, or do you want me to respond?
No, I'd like to get more information about that.
Yeah, I can provide you with more information now if you wish, or I can provide it in a board
If you
update.
have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So this data that is provided to us will provide us school level data that shows the prevalence of COVID-19 within in our school buildings, in our classrooms. The challenge that we've had since the outbreak of this pandemic was the inaccessibility of Northwestern data. We prided ourselves last year on slicing and dicing the numbers and dissecting whatever we had so we can make decisions that best met our community's needs, what was going on in our community. You're not going to get any greater data than what's happening in our schools with regard to COVID-19 and instituting a program such as this. If we have to go back to something like there's an injunction and we need to make a decision on whether or not to mask or not mask here, this would be another decision point that we can use to see what the prevalence rate is in our schools, separate from Lehigh County, so we can make a decision that's best meets the needs of Northwestern and not necessarily hinge us to Allentown School District and the like. And so from a data perspective, Mr. Delacour, it provides us with a lot of strategic value. From a perspective of trying to curtail the disease within our buildings, it also provides us with a value because, as Mrs. Holman mentioned, there's criteria in which the state has defined when school closures can occur. That criteria is 5% of a population of a building or 3 or more outbreaks within a school related to classrooms and et cetera. If we were able to identify positive individuals and remove them from our environment, so one, they can seek the care they need immediately, as well as curtail them from spreading the disease to others, that will only allow us to keep our schools open with greater fidelity, because we all seek to keep them 5 days a week. It would limit the number of potential additional positives as well as close contacts identified as a result of those positives within our building.
So it just refines the data a lot more in our buildings than we have available to us now.
Mr. Delafer, this provides the data in the most granular sense.
I disagree with that. If you only have 30% opt-in, you're only checking 30%.
Yes.
You're not, if you don't have 100% buy-in, you're not going to have 100% of the data. And the optics of it right now, I just don't, they're not fitting the narrative, and I don't think we can move forward with this. I don't, in my mind, moving forward, because this is something I wouldn't normally do. Forgive me, parents, but I do agree with a lot of you. And I think we gotta take this off the table. I mean, my vote down the line, if this comes back, is a no.
Mr. Delafer, I agree with Mr. Fatzinger. It will depend on the number of individuals participating in this consent in program that will drive the validity as well as the overall data for within our schools. The higher the percentage we have of individuals participating, absolutely, the better the data. If we have a low sample set of students participating, I don't see it to be as great of a value. We'll never know that, obviously, if the program's not instituted.
With that said, I know you both work very hard in trying to come up with the data. I just don't think this is the right.
We respect your opinion. We just feel a need to, if there's something brought to us as a potential option, for us to bring that to you to make an informed decision about that. So we, as Troy said, have crunched the data and been loud advocates to try to get it at as local of a level as possible, because we don't believe necessarily Lehigh County data represents what's happening here. And we wanted to put into place scientific methods and try to take the emotion out of the decisions of when we were going to make decisions and why. If this was an option, it's not our decision to make. It's certainly something we need to bring to you as a potential option for you to consider. If you choose not to do it, that's fine as well.
Mr. Delaker,
Yes, Dr. Warfel, go ahead.
just to take the devil's advocate point of view here, the administration is struggling with everything they have to put as many mitigation strategies into place to keep this at bay and to keep the schools open. The major disruption we're trying to avoid is closing down the schools again, having children out of school in a virtual learning situation. So to me, this is another level of mitigation. We won't know whether or not we'll have a reasonable number of participants that would benefit us one way or the other until we try it. So I voiced my opinion before. I strongly advocate for whatever mitigation we can to try to put this at bay. Thank you.
Thank you. A comment, Dr. Warfel.
I would just say that it hasn't been vetted with the hospital networks yet. It hasn't been discussed. So there is that element, because we do try to make decisions, right, with those local panel of experts. So I would say maybe a little bit more time. We are wearing masks right now, so there is that mitigation in place. And if there was, this is something that's available at any time. So even if it's something you can always go back to, correct?
That's it.
So would the wish of the board to table this or disapprove it and monitor it and continue to study it and perhaps reach out to our health network experts to try to get their idea about what's going on here. It's really data that we're looking at. And if we don't have 100% data, like, and to your point, Todd, about letting the parents decide if they want to do it or not, if we don't get 100%, it's going to probably be better than what we have now. But how much better? And with all the fears of voluntary going into mandates and all this and that we have to deal with and all the noise out there. I'm thinking we ought to just table this.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I mean, I just want to make it clear, you don't need 100% compliance to get a good statistical read. However, you do need significant coverage of the population. And what we don't know is what percentage. If 98% said they were in, this would be great data to have. I just don't think we know enough right now, so I would table it.
Mr. Delacour, I would support the tabling, especially based on Mrs. Lister's comment just now, until we have it further vetted with our health partners. We relied on them heavily for the last year and successfully, so I think that's a valid argument.
All right, then, hearing the desires of the board, it sounds to me like we should table this discussion and this issue on the agenda, and I would entertain a motion to table.
Motion to table, Mr. Delacour?
Dr. Warfel, was that you?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Motion to table the agenda item for the COVID-19 testing. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Mr. Weiser. Any comments or questions? I would just like to say thank you, Troy and Jennifer, for trying to continue to look at how we can best serve our kids and keep us here 5 days a week and protect the kids. These are tough decisions, and there's a lot out there that we have to really be cognizant about. If it's going to benefit us, fine. If it's going to rile up the community, I don't know that the results that we're going to get from this are going to be worth more disruption in our community. So with that, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
The aye would be to table the motion. You don't want to table it.
I would vote no. I would make a regular motion and vote no.
Oh, no.
I know.
The motion on the table is, the motion is to table the discussion.
Then I gotta vote to table it. Yeah.
Okay. So then again, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
No? Okay, this motion is tabled. Thank you.
Because we are tabling this now. Because we're tabling this, we're keeping it open to come back to us at any point.
We'll keep an eye on it, yeah.
Mr. Patsy, the same thing would happen though if you voted no. It could be brought back at any time for reconsideration. And technically, if you go by the parliamentary rules, you have until the end of the meeting to remove it from the table and bring it back. So either way you would remove tonight, it would have died. But it can be brought back at any future point in the meeting or future meetings if somebody would like to reconsider it.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is under policy. We do have a first reading this evening. Dr. Snowy, would you just review that real quickly?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Delacour. I have not received any comments on the first reading as well as the 4 second readings.
We don't need action on the first reading, but we do have to take action for the 4 policies listed for second reading, and that is 218.1 weapons, 218.2 terroristic threats, 247 hazing, and 249 bullying and cyberbullying. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve those policies.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Rex.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fatzing. Are any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Under operations, we have first item has been vetted in our workshop, and that's the annual maintenance contract with McClure, and that is to add the boilers to our existing maintenance contract, and I would entertain a motion to approve that contract with.
So moved. So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cassiano.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scheffler. only comment I have on that is the contract reads Northwestern,
Yeah.
Northwest,
takes it.
not Northwestern, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Under district finances, the next item is an open campus initiative agreement. I don't think we vetted this at the workshop.
We did not, but you approved the contract previously. So Mrs. Stitzel is on. You previously, I want to say June, approved a contract with Warren County School District. So this is the follow-up with all of the schools listed that Warren. I think Mrs. Stitzel, I believe you're on.
Yes, I am. Basically, this reinstates a lot of the information that was in the already approved contract. But because Warren County is a public school district in the state of Pennsylvania, they do have this addition to the contract that they would like us to sign, and it just acknowledges all of the school districts that they do work with.
Okay, so this is just a further clarification of something that was already discussed.
Yes.
All right,
It does need your approval.
but we do have to take action. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the open campus initiative agreement with Warren County School.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Shepherd,
I'll second.
second by Mrs. Lister. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6.04 is the yearbook agreement that we vetted at the workshop. 6.05 are the reports, financial reports that we vetted at the workshop, and 6.06 are the bills to be paid for this month. And I would entertain a motion to take this as a consent agenda and approve all three items.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Fatsinger, second by Mr. Cassiano. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
No, and that motion carried.
I have an extension,
One.
6.06.
One abstention by Mrs. Shepherd, 6.06. Motion carried. And moving into other reports, we have the enrollment report. And that looked interesting this time.
I don't know about interesting, but I will tell you, I was surprised because we did receive a number of students back, but yet our enrollment continues total. You'll see the 1991. So we are still down in enrollment pretty significantly, even from our enrollment the previous year. But this is the September enrollment that you see before you. If you have any questions, I will certainly take them.
Well, what caught my eye on this enrollment report for September 2021. September 2021, it shows 111 cyber charter students. In September of last year, it was 139.
No.
It's June of last year that was 139, but
115,
Yes.
113, 115. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line here. I'm sorry. So we did gain a few. Maybe that's COVID related too.
yeah, if you recall last year when we did the enrollment report, our number at the very beginning of the year hadn't moved much in terms of what it was, but through the year, we did lose some students to cyber and charter, and it appears to have leveled back to around where it had been pre-COVID. If you look at September 19, it was 112. So it appears to be leveling back to kind of where it was.
Any other questions about enrollment report?
Jen, just the missing cell is the non-public. Is that normal? I don't know if that's normal to have that gap.
It is, they report it in October. So the non-public schools report to Stacy and give all of their enrollments, and then that will appear, if you look up above, it's actually reported in October. There's a spot for it. And then we'll report it down below, but we don't get it till October when their enrollment settles. So every year in October, non-public is reported to me.
Any other questions on enrollment? Then we'll move into the foundation report. Mrs. Stitzel, are you still with us? We had the good news from DJ and Dan about the donation to our school. Is there any further information about the foundation?
I do not have any further information, but we're so happy to work with Foundation as usual, and really happy to continue to work with them throughout this school year, and excited to see what other things that they can fund for us in the next coming years.
Thank you, Mrs. Stitzel. And the committee reports is the next agenda item, and we'll begin with Dr. Orfel from the IU.
Mr. Delager, we have not met since our last meeting. We're meeting next Monday, so I have no report.
Okay, thank you. How about LCTI, Mr. Batzinger?
Nothing to report at this time.
Try C. I saw Dr. Kistler, our representative to L-Tri-C over the weekend, and I asked her if she'd like to come and give us an update of what's happening at L-Tri-C. And we'll try to put her on next month and fill us in on what's going on down there. There's a lot of interesting things happening with the training contract that they have with phrase here. Amazon. Thank you.
We're playing charades tonight, Amazon. I'm like, smiling face.
Well, anyway, they have this agreement with Amazon beginning for training their technicians, and Dr. Bieber has been traveling all over the country because L-Tri-C was chosen by Amazon to be a pilot in training the technicians that they need in that company. So it's a big deal down there, and it's a great revenue source for them, which is in effect going to help us. So that we'll hear from Dr. Kistler maybe next month. Recognition, Mr. Hernandez.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything is good at the rec fields. Kiddos are out on the fields and enjoying themselves for the fall sports.
Don't have any net profit from the
Not yet. Those numbers are still to come in yet.
Okay. Moving on to old business, there is nothing on the agenda. Any board members have any old business to discuss? New business, there are 3 items. We have the PSBA officer elections. Do you have a ballot for us?
It should be on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. And the ballot shows the recommended officers for the PSBA for our vote as a school board, and I would like to move that we cast that ballot that is on your agenda for those people, and I would entertain the motion to do so.
Make motion.
Motion by Mr. Rex.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Scheffler. Any comments or questions? I think the president was the only really contested one, and we all got an email with a little bit of a campaign speech from him, which was reaching out to us. So with that, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? We have our officer elections. School supplies donation. This is
You approved both, you looked at both of these on the workshop agenda, so these are not new items. One is the school supply agenda donation for backpacks and supplies for Courtney Time, New Life for Private Financial in the community, as well as a tissue donation for teachers from local food pantry. So nothing new, unless anyone has any questions about either of those.
okay, those items were vetted at the workshop, and I would entertain a motion to approve 9.02 and 9.03.
Motion to accept the donations.
Motion by Mr. Rex.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lister. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion carried. And we come to a point in the meeting again where we offer courtesy of the floor for all of you who have stayed with us this evening to address the board. You have another chance to please stand, state your name and your comment. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm Rose Moyer, 6547 Hollenbach Road. My question, it's not even a question. I guess what I'm trying to, COVID-19 is never going to be ever eradicated from the planet, ever. They did such a good job with the germ warfare that it's here to stay. So is this how, I guess, our children and how we're gonna live? We're gonna live in fear, we're gonna live behind masks, how is that living and enjoying life when we're all, whatever happened to like herd immunity? Like when we were kids, like if your sister or brother got something, what did they do? They shoved you in the room with your brother and sister so they could just get it over with all at one time. Why are we not letting natural immunity and herd immunity be part of the solution? I'm not a doctor, I'm just asking. I read a lot and I'm not standing here claiming to be an expert on medical stuff, but you just wonder, because they say the people that actually have experienced COVID-19 have these great antibodies that they're probably good to go, that, you know, they don't need the vaccine. And people who are getting a vaccine, they're still getting COVID because of different variants. So I guess I'm taken back. I'm gonna be 54 years old this year, and I'm thinking, what kind of life is this for our kids, and what kind of life is this for us? If we're gonna be like living behind a mask and living in fear every single day, ooh, not touching the buggy at the shopping, you know, at the shopping center, and how is this gonna pan out? I guess I'm a little taken back by that we are gonna be living like this. And it's a pretty scary thing to try and explain to your kids that maybe they shouldn't have any kids if this is what the world is gonna be like. So I'm just putting it out there of the herd immunity and natural immunity, of why it's not really coming into play at all with anything. Everybody's pushing vaccines and they're pushing this. It's always pushing something from big pharma, but what's our own bodies are set up and geared to fight this. So is this the way that we're gonna live for the rest of our days, behind a mask and in fear of getting COVID or whatever variants or the germ warfare they sick on us?
Mrs. Moy, I would take that as a rhetorical question. I don't think there's anybody here sitting here this evening that can answer that for you. That's something that you have to decide for yourself. We're all in the same situation and we all have the same feelings and worries and fears. And it's not the purview of this board to come up with an answer for that this evening. I'm sorry. Would anybody else like to address the board?
I have Dan Funk again, 7297 Adams Street, New Tripoli. If I may ask two questions about the potential, even though it was, the motion was tabled for the testing, in-school testing, and that is, I didn't quite hear what Karen had mentioned about the statistics on having the test done and reducing and seeing reduction of cases, if I heard that correctly. And was that a correlation between wearing the mask and being tested combined? I didn't quite hear it properly. The second question would be, what are we going to do about a false positive? Child not showing any symptoms, no fever, but yet test positive. Are we counting that as a positive test? Will that be pulled out and then retested?
Mr. Fung, can you hold that question until this becomes
yeah, I didn't know if we had that
table discussion.
That information.
Sure, but that's gone.
Sorry,
that this issue is gone. We
tabled
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board for hiring additional social emotional learning support staff. I believe the district is very sorely needed a social worker in addition to our guidance counselors who are often busy doing school stuff as opposed to social and emotional. And so I hope that the school will continue to add staff as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you please state your name?
Sarah Henninger, 6645 Curtisville Road, Orcas.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Henning. Yeah, there are a lot of issues other than masking in the school to address. Anyone else?
You got it better. I got it.
Just a couple questions, and maybe this was discussed when you guys were preparing mitigation.
This is Mr. Warner.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
For the record.
Jesse Howard, 8536 Woodward. And maybe you already went through some of this, maybe last year. And there were thoughts I had that I thought would be more effective than something like testing or even masking. More sinks for proper hand washing. Because I've noticed with my kindergarten, my first grader, they do more snacking when they're younger. They go to lunch. They don't wash hands. they just use hand sanitizer, and we all love the science right now. It seems like hand washing is more effective. So I just thought like working in the restaurant is for 3-bay sinks can easily be retrofitted into spaces, maybe in like lunchrooms, or the classrooms might have spaces where plumbing is accessible. To kind of bring in a 3-bay sink where you can get 3 kids to maybe have, I know it'd take 20, 30 minutes, and it might sap 45 minutes out of the day washing hands. But instead of getting involved in something maybe not as palatable as the testing, we can all find increasing hand washing more palatable. And then it doesn't just serve COVID, it serves colds, flus, stomach bugs, the whole gamut. And it would be something that would be in place, since I think we're going to be a pretty hypersensitive culture for a while, that we just keep rolling through and having a positive effect. Another one was reducing sugar in the food provided at breakfast time. It seems that that would also serve beyond COVID. But in terms, we all know, or hopefully some of us know, sugar very much, suppresses the immune system's response to fighting symptoms. And so I think it'd be like some easy practical things that wouldn't ruffle feathers as much, but just get some little bit healthier snacks, and I know these are budget things and money things, but that'd be awesome. Even if it's not this year, like next year, there's some things that like, instead of retabling that, I think that would be more beneficial.
Mr. Mauer, I can certainly address at least the first part of your question. Part of our plan last year was to increase hand washing to the point where it was in our plan. I kind of teased in several meetings that if our kids don't know how to wash their hands properly after this year, they never will. And so I can assure you, and our principals are on and can certainly address that if they like, the number of times we have taken time out of class time or in between transitions coming in, whether it's hand sanitizer or hand washing. That was a core tenet of our plan last year and continues to be this year.
Yes, sir.
Hunter Sweeney from 7353 Farrier Road in Orfield, PA. I don't really have like a big speech or anything like that. I more so am on the stance that with these decisions, as far as like masks and things go, I think it should be an open democracy. Like I think the parents should have more of a vote. Ms. Holman mentioned earlier that she might just go and do it, mandate the mask. And I don't think that's right. Like the other woman said earlier, like I would knock on your door and say, your kid has to do whatever, you know what I mean? It's not your place. It's the majority's place to make that decision. And I'd like to know if that's a possibility at some point.
I think you have elected a board, and the board has hired the chief executive officer to run the operation of the school. And there is no way that we can bring all of the decisions that have to be made to a public hearing and have a vote on it. These are decisions that are made by elected people and people holding the position to be able to make those evaluations and make those recommendations to the board.
Yeah, but look at all the people that came out to stand against that. Obviously the minority that we talk about isn't that minor. And if it becomes an issue like that where this many of us don't agree, we're taking the times out of our days, our nights, whatever, to come out and stand up, what is that going to do? Like, what are we changing? Can we change the elected officials? Can we change something? Honestly, just say, let's do it. I don't understand. I'm new to this. I haven't had an uprising in a while.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, I haven't either.
I'd like to not see one.
Would anybody else like to address the board?
Camille Bernard again from Bacon Road, Drummondville. And I do thank you for tabling that. I don't believe the testing should belong in the school. I believe it should belong in a medical facility. Also, I would like to comment, I'm not really like a student much, I'm more of a teacher, but how much concentration it takes to like listen to you with the mask on your mouth and like not being able to see your face move. I mean, boy, these kids must be drained at the end of the day. It's difficult.
Thank you, Mrs. Berger. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Dellifer, 7353 Farrier Road. I think that IEPs definitely need to be taken into account as far as the medical exemptions go. And it amazes me that a child with a speech impediment is still forced to wear a mask all day when that severely impacts their development. How that doesn't fall under the medical exemption, I don't understand. I think an IEP should be an automatic exemption, whether it's anxiety related, speech related, pretty much anything else. And that is a total system flaw to not take that into account. I also wonder if any of you have really seen 5-year-olds firsthand wearing masks every day, because it's truly disgusting. It's unsanitary, if anything. They chew on them, they lick them, they slobber in them, they crumble them up in their hands, they throw them at their friends and put them back on their faces, and it's disgusting. If anything, we are spreading germs and you're putting all of our children's health at risk. The fact that you say you're looking out for their health, I completely disagree with that.
Well, thank you for your comment. Yeah, as we said, as Mrs. Holman said earlier, we're educational experts, not we, but they are educational experts. We're not medical experts, and we're taking medical advice from the health network that we have available to us, and we're following what are considered right now. You may disagree, but right now, a lawful order that came out of Harrisburg to put masks on the kids, and I'm sorry, but that's not.
There's exemption, show us.
Would anybody else like to address?
Yeah, I can
this?
address that. The school board does not have the power.
There's other schools that are doing it non-masking.
The school board does not have the power to decide whether a mandate is valid or not. That decision lies with the court. That decision lies with the General Assembly. There are 2 lawsuits that have been filed challenging the action of Secretary B, acting Secretary B. Acting Secretary B. They are going through the system, and that's what you can do. The school board, there are districts, yes, I hear you, that do not comply.
But how come they
Those
don't have to go
districts, can
through
I
the
finish,
system? but
please?
we do?
I have sat here and listened to everybody. Please just let me finish. Those districts have received letters from the Pennsylvania Department of Education and have laid out the implications to school board members and school districts who do not follow this mandate. That as we sit here today is deemed valid until someone else says differently. And Ms. Moyer, because we have the same last name, I remember you did your research, and what you were looking at was called the Political Subdivisions Torts Claim Act. And you are correct. Under normal circumstances, these individuals have sovereign immunity. They cannot be sued, except for those exceptions that you saw in the law. The Pennsylvania Department of Education has indicated to them that if they do not follow this mandate, they will be stripped of that immunity. They will be able to come after these individuals, and that insurance coverage for the school district could be repealed from them. So, and then the Department of Education has sent out another email that has basically said that this is not an opt-out order, that parents, what you see other school districts doing with the opt-out forms is not permitted. Any exemption that comes through has to come through with evidence to substantiate a medical, mental condition, and or a disability. So that is what has happened in the last 2 weeks since this order came out. Best I can say is we see what happens when these lawsuits go through. It is being challenged, but these individuals are required to follow the mandate that is in place. And if they do not only could the district lose funding, could they be sued by children who do have IEPs and 504s if they are displaced from school every day? But the district could also lose potential funding. So that is what they are grappling with as they sit here. I think everybody hears you, and I don't think there are people who necessarily disagree with you. But this is the rock and the hard place that they are in as they sit here at the table today. Things may change, but as in a month from now. But right now, that's what they're facing.
I just want to be the first to say that if this table thing about the pool classroom testing comes back and passes, I will be bullying my child, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I would like to know who on our board is going to be fighting for our civil rights in this and also joining the fight against this mandate. I'd like to see which of our members are going to participate in that.
So can I ask the question again?
Can someone, oh, my name is Rebecca Ezel from 9767 Stagecoach Road. If there is litigation right now in Harrisburg from districts and people throughout the areas of Pennsylvania who are fighting this, I'd like to know who members of our school board are participating in that fight.
Define fighting.
Participating in the legal battle to clarify what this mandate is. Is it a law? Is it not? I was just watching,
I think we're doing that now.
watching the Secretary of Education the other day. He specifically said, there is no funding that can be withheld from a district that doesn't participate in this. There is no legal ramification for a district that doesn't participate in this. And the order itself, again, as was said tonight, if it could cause a medical issue. But now all of a sudden we need a 4-page doctor's note. None of it jives. None of it makes sense. So I would really like to know that I can walk away tonight knowing that someone on this board is actually going to stand up in the manner that we've stood up here tonight and go to Harrisburg and fight this alongside with us.
Mr. Delacour, I can just respond. The 2 lawsuits, one is brought by a senator. Oh, turn it off. And the other is brought by parents.
Okay, well, the parents are here, and how about the school board's getting involved as well? I'm suggesting that. As a constituent, I would love to see a school board actually step out and fight on behalf of the people.
This is public comment, it's not a discussion, so let's take one at a time. Can you finish your statement?
That's all. It would just be a wonderful thing to see someone from the school board stand up with us to fight these overreach of government.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So there's been, you mentioned in the beginning that this is not a public meeting, it's a meeting in public.
Yes.
Will there be a public meeting? For everything, all these issues that we're bringing up that we keep getting shut down about, that really, we're talking, we're yelling, screaming, crying. It's going in one ear and out the other, it doesn't matter. You know, bottom line, Homeland's gonna do what she wants, and that's fine. Where is the public meeting? I want everybody together. I want to at least give the option out. Half the parent, more than half the parents in school don't even come to the school board meetings. Will there be a public one? That's like.
There is no public meeting plan. There is no discussion in my mind that we have to have. We have a plan in place. We took comment from you this evening. We have a mandate in that you may, and I don't agree with, coming from Harrisburg about masking, that we have an obligation. We took an oath. We took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, the Commonwealth and the United States. Not the first oath I took to support the Constitution. But we have an oath to support the Constitution. And as it is right now, that order, like it or not, I don't like it either, came from Harrisburg as an official order, and we have to comply with that. Or else there will be consequences for the school district and for the kids and for ourselves.
Sir, honestly, I like the way
And
you
when you're
talk.
talking
I
about
see where you
fighting,
stand.
I don't know what your definition of fighting is. I fought for this Constitution in my lifetime. And this is not the kind of hill that I'm willing to die on yet.
No, sir, like I said.
But this is
you know,
this is a decision that we all have to make. We all have to live with this. We all have to do things that we don't like to do, like my mom told me when I grew up so many times. That were things in life that you have to do that you don't like. We don't like it. I don't like it. We have to let it run its course. As I said earlier this evening, this country has been around for 245 years, and we've lived by the rule of law. We've lived under the law, under the Constitution, and if we continue to do that, this will pass also. I'm sorry, but I don't see the need to have a public meeting to have people come
Well,
out
we
and
just are
shout at
upset.
each other.
Because the rock in the hard place isn't a rock in a hard place. It's funding versus our kids' health. That's what it is. You guys are worried about losing funding. We're worried about our kids getting sick because of these masks. And obviously,
You lose your funding, you won't have a school to come to anyway.
honestly, if you guys don't start leaning towards our favor, our kids won't go here anyway. We're gonna have to pay for a different
Yeah,
school anyway, and that's unfortunate because
Yeah,
this
that
is a
option,
good
but
school.
every school is in the same situation. I'm sorry.
There's
Anybody
not.
else like to address the board before we close? Yes, ma'am.
Mary Ann Wright, Kings Highland, municipality. It's very obvious, we all know that the country is divided, and you can see that our community is divided as well. I'm not here to say what it is that I believe, but I am here to say that I know every single person around this table. And I know that you don't get up in the morning and think, what can I do to screw up a kid's life? You get up in the morning and you think, what is the best thing I can do based on the information that I have? Sometimes that goes along with what parents like, and sometimes it doesn't. I just want to thank you all. I know that you have been getting very many emails, I know phone calls, and I know loss of sleep. I know what that's like, and I know how all of you take your jobs very seriously. I just want to thank you and know that your work and your dedication to the school district, while it may sound tonight that people believe you're not doing a good job, I know that you come to the job every day and do the best that you can for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell. Anyone else like to address the board before we close? Yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for the comments that you gave to us. Captured all these comments, and we will continue to fight this battle and take action in the best interest of our kids in order to try to stay open 5 days a week with our kids coming in school. There was one thing we have to go back to on the agenda that I failed to do, and I apologize, but I did not ask for a motion to approve the educational foundation donation from the foundation, and we have to take formal action to accept that donation. So I would entertain a motion to do that. Motion by Mrs. Sheffer.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Lister. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and thank you for that. Now, we are at the point in the agenda where communications from the secretary. Anything, Mr. Cassiano? And administrative and building sharing. Administrative.
Yes, sir. Mr. DeVico.
Good evening, everybody. I would just like to say that it's great to have students back in our seats 5 days a week. Teachers and students are off to a great start, and we're looking forward to a great year as we move forward. Thank you.
Mrs. Pooley.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to say the kids have been doing a fantastic job with the start of the year and all of the challenges that we've experienced. And certainly they make it worth coming to work every single day. And the teachers are doing a fantastic job. So thank you, everybody, for your support as we started the year.
Mr. Gibler.
Good evening, members of the board, administrative staff. I just would like to report that our first safety and security drill of the school year went exceptionally well today. The students in many cases took the initiative and participated with an extreme amount of attention to detail. So students are prepared. Our run, hide, fight procedures and policies are doing well, and we are prepared for many different critical incidents that hopefully never have to occur at the high school, but I do feel prepared. So thank you, and the students and faculty did a fantastic job.
Mrs. Spitzel.
I have nothing further this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Just happy to report that we're up and running. We're going week by week. Our student athletes, our coaches, and our participants in our activity programs. I can't compliment them enough. Everything that's asked of them, they even came up with some great ideas as far as keeping their programs safe and going. So my hat's off to them as always. I also like to thank the Pennsylvania National Guard, who made our military appreciation and 9/11 awareness game last Friday a huge success. It's a success when you bring Chief Tobin. I think I saw a little tear in his eye as we did the ceremony. So Staff Sergeant Miranda got us National Guard jerseys that we wore. And Southern Lehigh was a great partner in making that happen. So it was something to see. Again, just remembering what happened 20 years ago last week. So that's all I have to report. And I just thank you for your continued support as we do the best we can to make it through this. Thank you.
Mrs. Burlett.
Good evening. I just want to share that the students have been doing a great job. They're settling in. The teachers are providing them with very engaging activities, and we are very happy to have everyone back. Thank you.
Mrs. Edmonds.
Nothing further this evening, thanks.
Mrs. Yadish.
I'd just like to echo what my colleagues have shared. We are just so excited to have everybody back in the building. Seeing the students has just been the highlight of a really long year. So we're happy to have everybody back. Thank you everyone for your support in allowing us to be back and following all the guidance as it is laid before us. So thank you to everyone.
Mr. Oaks?
I just wanted to make a statement too about, although we're recruiting for the transportation department, and certainly we're feeling effects of employees shortage in the custodian field and all of the operations side of the district. Our employees that we currently have are working as many hours of overtime as they can give us and doing everything they possibly can to keep us afloat on the operations side. And they can't get enough credit for the things that they've done, from the custodians to the maintenance to the D&D to just across the board, including the transportation. They are all working so hard to keep this district as efficient as we can and open. And so I just want to give credit to them as well. Thank you.
Chief?
I'd just like to thank members of the public who came today, presenting yourself in a passionate, but dignified, respectful manner. That's really what we would have here. And it's good to be reminded that we are all Americans. It's the greatest nation the world has ever seen.
Well said, Chief. Ms. Matiga?
How do I follow along? I want to thank the board for the support of adding a social worker to our staff. That's a great addition, and I know to make a difference for all of our students. And I will echo what Mr. Oak said, that we continue to recruit additional wonderful employees, but staff that we have right now is that they're doing everything they can to keep us afloat and our facilities clean and our students transported safely. Thank you, Tim.
That brings it to me. First and foremost, I want to thank the foundation for their continued tremendous support. $143,000. That's amazing. Our kids reap the benefits of all of your efforts every day. So thank you so much. I also want to thank Nutropoli Bank. As Mr. Delaker said, it is a local company, a local bank that supports us here in the community, as well as PFM for helping us to find a savings of $1.2 million. Just outstanding all around. Thank you.
I think administratively, I'll certainly tie it up. Dr. Wright mentioned earlier, the people around this table have made some difficult decisions. This is probably by far, I would say, the most difficult. Whenever you're dealing with people's health and safety, making the right decision is certainly debatable about what the right thing to do is. I can tell you the conversations we've had around this table and in public meetings about trying to layer on the mitigation strategies and do the very best thing that we can, and believed we had a plan in place to do that. Mr. Oaks mentioned it, but certainly everyone in the organization, whether it's a teacher or a custodian or a bus driver, is doing something right now they didn't sign up for. They didn't know when they agreed to take that job they were going to go in after a positive student in the classroom and clean up, or they were going to transport a student or students that had COVID. And we are pulling together as a team, and just would certainly ask for that from our community. Right now, the decision is not in my court. My comment earlier was certainly about what will happen if there is an injunction, but right now, my message was we were following the mandate and doing the very best we could with what we had. If that comes to pass, we will be around this table talking about it again and trying to make the very best decision we can for all of our students. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Let's start with Mr. Hernandez, Vice President Hernandez.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I know it's a difficult topic. We do get your emails. We do listen to them. We do read them. We do listen to your comments as well. Fortunately, we all have thick skin. The decisions we make aren't easy. I think you guys all recognize that, but it's easy to be on your side of the fence and throw these stones this way. But it is what it is. We are elected, so we got to make these tough decisions. On a positive note, I'm glad everybody is back to school, the kids 5 days a week. I'm also appreciative of all the sports activities that are going on, the kids that are out there. and also appreciative that their parents, their family, and their friends are now out on the fields with the opportunity to see these kids play, which they were all deprived of last year. So with that, I'll pass it on. Thanks.
I also want to thank the staff from the top all the way down, everybody doing, their job, 110%. We appreciate that all very, very much. And another thank you to the foundation for the $142,850 donation.
Thank you. Mrs. Shepherd.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that, one of the parents said tonight about, elections. And I think for every member on the board, we'd love for anyone to step up and volunteer. I think the disappointing part is that when it comes election time, you can't even fill the seats sometimes for school board members. And I think it was just this year that we had challenges, that there were actually enough people that we had a race. So I would really welcome that. We would love to see differences of opinions on the board, and it what makes us strong and representative of the community. So I really certainly hope that when that time comes again and there's open seats, that we see other members of the community other than the ones that have been serving on this board for a long time. So thank you.
Mrs. Lister.
Just thankful the kids are back in school 5 days a week, and that the teachers have such enthusiasm, and the principals. We know this isn't easy for anyone, so really commend everyone for going above and beyond. We can all just do what we can and try to be positive role models to our kids, because they pick up on our energy. So we want to put out there as much positivity as we can, and I really appreciate the support from parents and the school district and the teachers and the community. Thanks.
Mr. Lister.
Again, echoing what others have said, appreciation for the foundation for that contribution. And really, that contribution comes from the community participating in many of those foundation events, whether it's the shoot or the golf outings, et cetera. So again, thanks to the community, thanks to the foundation. I just want to reinforce something I said in the public meeting 2 weeks ago, and that is there's a distinction in my mind between local decision making and the decisions that are made. There's been a lot of debate, obviously, about the decision to put masks back on these kids. I, for one, am more supportive of local level decision making. I think the decisions that are coming down from, Department of Health and the governor are worthy of criticism. And as I said 2 weeks ago, it's really the job of the school to educate, the students on the process. We do need to follow the law. We do need to educate the students on the process for which those laws get changed, right? And how to fight that and how to go pursue that. So I think that's a worthy challenge to the entire community to sort of understand how to do that in the proper forum. Again, local decisions, I think, are important so that we can make the right decisions for this community, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't be making, as Jen said, the same decision, right? So I would rather have that control at this table and in this building rather than coming down from the top. Again, great to see the school back in motion. And 5 days a week is obviously where we need our kids to be at this point.
Dr. Warfel.
Yes, sir. Just wishing everybody a healthy and successful school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. John.
I'd like to thank the foundation for their donation. I know every year they step up. It's really incredible work that they do. I appreciate all the parents coming out and voicing their opinion. Trust, we hear you. We do hear you. And lastly, Ms. Holman, I'd like to thank you and your staff for such hard work getting our kids back 5 days a week. It's awesome. I also heard a rumor that Mr. Oakes even drives a bus. So that's the kind of staff you have, and I'm sure we all appreciate that to get our kids to and from school. So, thank you.
Excellent staff, that's for sure.
Thank you, John. Ratzinger.
Going last, I echo what everybody else around the table said, and actually I'd like to thank Jessica tonight for putting putting into words what I think a lot of us are feeling and not being able to articulate it ourselves. I appreciate what you said and how you said it to explain further. So thank you.
Attorney Moore?
I'm just gonna save that moment because lawyers are never thanked.
No, I'm hurt, but I did it.
All right, well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight and for hanging around for almost 3 hours to work through this meeting, and appreciate all the civility that you brought this evening. This is a very emotional topic for all of us. And I really appreciate it. It's just another indication of the kind of community that we have, that we can come together and we can be civil and respectful and discuss some pretty emotional topics. And we will work through this, as I said before. And I just ask for patience and some form of trust that you have some people here that are very talented and dedicated and are doing their best to keep the school open for 5 days a week and do what's best for your children. And I know it's not enough in a lot of your eyes, but I apologize for, as presider over these meetings, it's my position to keep things rolling and moving along. I apologize if I offended anybody by being abrupt and trying to keep this meeting going this evening. And we're approaching 10 o'clock, so I will end the meeting by saying we will have we had an executive session for legal September 10th. At 5 o'clock, that was last Friday night, to update ourselves on all the legal issues. Our next workshop meeting will be October 6th at 7 o'clock in here. And executive session for personnel will immediately follow that meeting on the 6th. And then our regular board meeting will be October 20th. Thank you again for coming tonight, and with that, I ask for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
First by Mr. Rex.
Second.
Second by Mr. Patsy.
Third.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, from that radio.